All right, guys. So we are back up here live. We're going to get ready to go. Mr. Tucker is about to testify, so we're a few minutes behind. I like to do that just to know what's going on and introduce everything, and we'll get caught up eventually with breaks and everything. But let's jump in here and get started with Mr. Tucker's testimony.
So we're here on the record, State versus Tucker. Jurors are in the jury room, so you prepared to proceed with your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's bring in the jury then.
My glasses for this.
All right, folks, you can have a seat. We'll wait for the remaining juror. Make yourself comfortable.
All jurors present in the courtroom, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. Members of the jury, welcome back. Good to see you back again. I'm sure you recall that I informed you before we took a very early break this morning that the defense's presentation had been completed. I was a bit premature with that. There's one other aspect of evidence that is going to be presented. So, Mr. Tucker.
I guess I'm calling myself to the stand.
All right, so Mr. Tucker is going to be a witness in the case. So if you'd approach the deputy, turn, face the clerk, raise your just raise your right hand, face the clerk. You like every you've already cleared security like everybody else here, so you're good. Just we want to put you under oath like every other witness.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, please have a seat on the witness stand.
Actually, if you would, thank you. I'm probably going to need somewhere in here.
All right, so first of all, would you state your name?
Franklin Tyrone Tucker.
All right. So, as you all know, Mr. Tucker's acting as his own attorney. So, in this particular direct examination, he is being allowed to testify in narrative form. Rather than asking himself questions and then giving an answer, he's just going to testify as a narrative. So, you can proceed.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little weird. Not exactly expected, guys. I'm sorry about that. But I guess we're going to start. I think the best place probably to start is probably around Hurricane Irma. That would probably be the best way to go. I had been in Key West for, I don't know, a while. Been probably a couple of years. Been working on boats. Originally, before this storm happened, I got myself a boat. Actually, I had 3 at one point. But, you know, doing the idea was to, sail the Caribbean, you know, eventually island hop my way down to Venezuela and then go to, South America, go up the mouth of the Amazon. Didn't happen, obviously Irma did a lot of damage. I mean, I'm sure some of you were here and remember. But the thing is I didn't evacuate when that happened, and eventually, just prior to this incident happening, I was working doing hurricane cleanup. There wasn't very many of us here. A lot of people had evacuated, so there wasn't too many people here to do that kind of work. Not that it was my normal thing, but yeah, I mean, I was getting paid pretty good money, to be honest. It was, they had some of the more wealthy neighborhoods that were up in the Big Pine area. They had people who wanted their roofs blue tarped. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but they wanted their roofs blue tarped, and they were paying me $300 an hour to get up there. And at the time, I mean, I was like, $300 an hour, I'm up there, no problem, you know? So, I did some of that, and I also did hurricane, like debris, getting rid of debris and chopping up, cutting up like, I don't know, logs or whatever, trees that had fallen. I do remember finding an airplane cockpit in somebody's backyard in Big Pine, and there's no airport near there, so anyway, but that's what I was doing for money at the time, and I was getting paid cash. So like I said, $300 an hour, and sometimes I'd do, I don't know, 4 or 5 roofs in a day sometimes. So that's pretty good money for that time, right? And yes, I did stay at cots at certain points, just because like many people at that time, didn't have it. A lot of us, if you want to say homeless, I guess that is the word. But the thing is a lot of people were homeless at that point. A lot of people lost their boats. A lot of people lost their houses, lost their homes. I wasn't exactly special that way. But I was working the whole time, and I was making good money. And my whole plan was to buy another boat, and again resume my plan to sail off into the Caribbean. And this, this is a personal note, I guess, because of the time. Most people don't know I have a 14-year-old. I had a 14-year-old son at the time that I raised myself. I was a single dad, and I raised him up till he was.
Objection to the relevance.
Okay,
Well, because he was supposed to come live with me. That's the only.
I'm sorry,
sad
Mr.
story.
You wanted to complete your thought there? If it's connected, go ahead.
No, it's just part of the story because he was actually supposed to, he was supposed to be coming to live with me in about 2 months before, when this happened.
Okay.
Right after this happened, I had about 2 months, and he was supposed to come live with me. So it is kind of part of the story. You can see my mentality at the time. But the thing is okay. So anyway, that didn't happen, obviously. So as far as the warehouse, right? The warehouse, I remember it from the storm because, yes, I did stay there during the storm. And, it was a big steel building. It was on cinder blocks. So, I mean, okay. It seemed like a good place to ride out the storm. And the only thing I was worried about was the roof getting blown off. So, I stayed there for, I don't know, maybe a week. I don't know, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But, and I know it's come out before that April Walker, Rory Wilson's girlfriend, did not like me. And I didn't stay there because of that. It's like, and not only that, they were having, between Rory and April, they had domestics that, I remember the cops coming out 3 times in one night when I was there. And I'm like, okay, this is not someplace I want to be, right? So I didn't stay there. I went, I was staying at Cots again, right? And when I was staying at Cots, it was okay. I don't necessarily like staying there, but I was saving up money. That's basically it, saving up money, getting a new boat. Anyway, so, somewheres along the lines, and I don't remember exactly when this was, but, I know Mr. Johnson testified that, we met after he got out of jail. No, I was actually at work when he went to jail, and I remember very well when he went to jail because we knew each other prior to that. How, he actually knows how I ended up at the warehouse. The way I ended up there is I had a friend, CJ and Michelle, who lived, they were living in the same, I guess they, you guys know conch houses, I guess is what they call them down here. But it wasn't really a conch house because it's a warehouse, and they had built apartments in there that I guess weren't really legal, but they were renting out rooms but sharing a bathroom and a kitchen and a dining room, right? And there's multiple roommates that are up there. So I don't even remember how many people live there. There's a bunch of people who live there. But anyway, Roy Wilson and his girlfriend had the apartment downstairs. They actually had an apartment to themselves. And then there were people upstairs who lived in the apartments upstairs, or the rooms upstairs, I should say. One of them was brought up before a guy named David Gross, right? They like to call him the White Detroit in this whole story. But yes, he lived upstairs, and my friends CJ and Michelle had one of these rooms up there. And Michelle, she was the manager of Burger King. She was actually a manager of Burger King. I forget what CJ did, but But the thing is okay, CJ somewhere along the lines gets into an altercation with David Gross and punches him in the nose, right? And, again, David goes ahead and gets a restraining order against CJ. Now, I just happened to show up the day that, man, the police are escorting CJ and Michelle out of there because of this restraining order, right? And, as they're going out, if they're going to a hotel, that's where they're going to go, and they can't take all their belongings with them, right? Can't take everything with them. So they asked me, they were like, okay, well, would you stay here and watch our stuff, make sure nobody messes with it, make sure nobody steals it, that kind of stuff. Stay here, while until we can come back and get our stuff, right? And I was like, at first I was like, okay, well, I've got to be at work in a few days, but yeah, I can watch it for you, and so I do, and I go and I stay in CJ and Michelle's room. And, I did come into contact with a few of these people, it's like, again, Travis was one of them. I didn't know him very well. As far as I knew, he came down from Michigan with a guy named Scott Gideon. That's the one I asked about. Or no, sorry, Matthew Gideon is his name. They called him Matty. But anyway, he had come down from Michigan with this guy. And, they were okay. I didn't really think anything of them. But they were okay. And, I don't remember exactly how long I was there before this incident happened, but this is how I end up, in this thing. Because, okay, like I said, I don't remember exactly the time frame here, but I do remember some of the people that were around at the time. I do remember Travis was there. I know Matthew had already left, and I think Matthew went to the beach, if I'm correct. But again, Mr. Johnson ended up with his medications. So, that's a whole different story. But the thing is I'm trying to remember now. It's like, you got to remember, this is around Fantasy Fest time, when this happens, right? Because, okay, it happens on November 17th, right? And Fantasy Fest, that year was on Halloween, the 31st, right? Now, I know from just my own phone records that I looked at recently when I was looking at it for this case, right? I had 2 phone calls with John Travis Johnson, right? And they're from the 28th of October, right? So I must have met him somewhere in that time period, right? And I know that year for Fantasy Fest, I don't remember what the theme was. I really don't remember what the theme was, but I know that the parade was on Halloween night, and I know it was at the Green Parrot that night, right? And I hung out there quite a bit. My friend, longtime friend, runs the place. I don't know if any of y'all know Jim Fossum, but yeah, he runs the place. And so I still have quite a few friends. I've been coming here since I was 13, and been, I guess they call it a Key West rubber band is what they call me. It's like, I'll move away, I come back, I move away, I come back. My daughter was even born here, right? So anyway, to keep on going here, Fantasy Fest happens, and I'm hanging out with a friend of mine named Ben, and we're hanging out on what we call the party bench. It's right outside the little deli that's right there down on the corner. And he has a dog, can't take him in the bar, so, we're hanging out on the bench. And some girls come by, and they wanted to paint up our faces, and, of course, we let them, right? It's like, okay, why not, right? So they go ahead and paint up our faces and all that. And then they're like, okay, well, can you pose for us, look scary, that kind of thing. Okay, so we do, both of us, right? So there's a picture of both of us like this. But anyway, so fast forward. We go down to the point where all this has happened. And again, Fantasy Fest, look, I have a tendency to drink more when I come to Key West than any place else I ever live. It's like, especially when I was on the boatyard and working on boats and stuff like that, because I did do quite a bit of that. I actually did a restoration project on a big Hatteras yacht at one point. But, so yeah, I have a tendency to drink more when I'm down here. And this one day, and this is about the best I could recollect, is, I remember that day I was drinking Fireball with Travis, right? So I know I had been drinking that day. And I know I went into the bedroom, which is, again, CJ and Michelle's room. And I know, so this is during the time period where I'm watching it for them. You know, so I remember that. And I don't remember much else about the day, except I do remember at one point, it's got to be later on in the evening, and I wake up and I'm out of cigarettes, right? And I wake up and I get, you know, and Travis is actually there, right? So I go and I walk to Tom Thumb, you know, to get cigarettes, and I go over there to get cigarettes, and I come back, and when we were up at Tom Thumb, right? I remember looking, and I'm like, I could look up, okay, there's the fire stations right there, and then you can see Laurel Avenue, where this happened, right? You can see Laurel Avenue from there. And I could see the cop lights up there, right? I could see a bunch of cop lights up there. And I remember saying to Travis, I was like, man, I wonder what happened up there, right? And it's like, you know, and the thing is again, you know, I'm not in dark clothing. I am in shorts. I am wearing sandals. I am wearing, you know, normal people clothes, right? I guess I should say normal for Key West, right? But anyway, yes, and Mr. Mansfield alluded to this. You know, I did have a nice big long goatee, and you know, I had, you know, Lord knows I have tattoos when I take off my suit. You know, but the bottom line is, you know, I planned on living on boats, and yes, I was living that lifestyle. It's like, you know, like I said, I planned on sailing off into the sunset, and you know, and just enjoying my life and kind of traveling, you know. And you know, so I kind of looked like a little savage. I'm not gonna say I didn't, you know. It's like, you know, us boat people, we kind of had have a style, I guess. I don't know what it is. And, you know, and yeah, it's kind of a freer way of living, I guess. Anyway, but beside the point. So getting back to that night, I remember looking up down Laurel Avenue and seeing the lights, right? By the time we got back, right, so it's not a very far walk from Tom Thumb to the warehouse. But by the time we got back there were cop cars everywhere. I mean, you know, I'd never seen anything like that on Stock Island, right? I mean, you know, literally, you had the FWC, Border Patrol, you know, there's police everywhere, and they're going everywhere, right? And, you know, there's police sirens everywhere. And I remember, you know, we went back inside, and I think Travis did buy like a 12-pack of beer or something like that, right? And we go back inside, and I remember you could see, again, there's a bunch of these cop cars that went down into what they call it Little Haiti there, right? It's a bunch of trailers, and, you know, and yes, it's before you get to the Hogfish, right? That road there. And I remember there's a bunch of cop cars that, man, you're going down into that neighborhood, right? And I'm like, damn, I wonder what those guys did. I'm like, you know, I mean, whatever it is, they want them bad, you know, so. And I think I said that to Travis, I'm not sure. Oh, and by the way, when we got back, that was the other thing, Big Scott was waiting for us when we got back. I remember that too. Because, okay, I know Travis, he testified that, you know, he had the key to the door. Him and Maury Wilson were the only ones with the keys to the door, right? So, you know, Big Scott was waiting outside for us, right? And because he couldn't get inside, right? He couldn't get in the door, right? So anyway, so we go upstairs, and, you know, and when I saw all that stuff out the window, you gotta remember I'm still a little bit lit. You know, I managed to walk my butt down to the Tom Thumb, but you know, I wasn't going much farther than that. So anyway, so I go from there. Let's see, I go from there, and I remember Big Scott and Travis were gonna go, and they were gonna go hang out on the front porch downstairs and watch the cop cars go by. You know, just see what was up. You know, they're gonna drink beer on the porch and watch the cop cars. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going back to bed, you know, because I was like, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm still not good, right? So I went back in, and I passed out in the bed, right? You know, and was it CJ and Michelle's room, right? So I passed out in there, and from what I understand, you know, again, I can't, you know, I can't really, you know, say, except for I've seen it on video now. I mean, I've seen it on video as far as some of this stuff, but while I was upstairs and I'm passed out in there. This is where, okay, to clarify, when I went to go get cigarettes at Tom Thumb, right, it has to be sometime after the Florida Keys Electric video that you see there, right? It has to be sometime after that. I don't know when, but, you know, unfortunately, that's all we have for video. So I don't know. I just know that, you know, it had to be sometime after that. Because, like I said, Travis is already there. So it's like, okay, I know it has to be there, right? So anyway, so I don't know exactly, you know, what time. You know, I couldn't tell you exactly what time. I do know that, yes, it would have been helpful if we had the video from Tom Thumb.
Judge, can I object? Can we come sidebar?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, okay. So we'll resume with the direct examination testimony.
So I'm going to, okay, back to where we are with the story. So again, I'm passed out in bed, and somewheres along the lines, again, the police show up at the house is because, okay, this was told to me by Travis and Big Scott.
Objection to hearsay.
Okay.
We'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Well, I get woke up along the line somewheres along the night, and I don't remember when, but I remember, man, I get woken up in the middle of the night, and because when they went downstairs to go and check this out, right? I remember telling them, I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep, man. I'm like, yeah, tell me what happened later, just tell me what happened, because I mean it is kind of a big deal, So anyway, so I go pass out, and somewheres along the night, I wake up, man, and Rory Wilson is there, and Travis is there, and Big Scott's there. And, I mean, we're drinking and smoking some weed, I mean, and, as far as crack, I don't remember, man, the crack thing. Not too much of it anyway. I mean, I vaguely remember some of it. But the thing is because, I say that because I seem to remember somebody having crack and somebody smoking it, but man, I don't remember. I do, again, at this point, I'm resuming drinking and I am smoking weed at this time, right? So I'm not, again, I'm refogging my brain at this point. So anyway, so after that, let's see, because, okay, like I said, again, I had a tendency around Fantasy Fest. It was usually a couple weeks worth of partying, man, during Fantasy Fest is usually what it was for me, but I don't remember much, man, as far as the next day. I don't really remember too much as far as that went. I do remember, okay, this is one thing I do remember. Because again, it starts to, it's been many years and I can't really tell you guys, man, exactly, because it has been years and I'm trying to, my best to remember here. But I do remember there's a point that comes in there where we have two detectives that show up at the door, right? And they come to the front door. And I opened the door for them. I literally opened the door for them, and I know now who they are. I mean, I'm sure they introduced themselves at the time. I just don't remember them introducing themselves. But it was Detective Smith and Detective Fernandez, right? And now, don't get me wrong. I knew they were detectives because they're not wearing uniforms and they've got their badge on their belt, right? So the thing is okay. So I know they're detectives, right? And they start asking me questions about Rory Wilson. Right, and I know Rory. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's not like we hang out all the time. It's not like I know him. I know him that well, right? But I know him, right? And but they're asking me questions like, okay, they're asking me, is he a drug dealer? They're asking me stuff like that, right? And I'm like, well, not that I know of. I know he has a job. I mean, I know he has a pregnant girlfriend. I know that. But, they're asking me a bunch of different questions, right? And, I actually even, I even gave him, Rory's phone number. I was like, if you want to contact him, here, I'll give you his number, right? And I remember Rory after that, man. It's like, talking about weird. But he texts me right after they leave, and because I also told him that Rory's door is around the other side of the building, right? It's actually on the back side of the building. He has like a front door that's all his own, right? And I told him about that, and it's like, so anyway, again, it's a little fuzzy here, but I do remember Rory texting me not long after they left, right? And he's like, cops.
Objection to hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay, well, anyway, so I do remember, telling Rory I go to him because they left me a card, right? And I go knock on his door and I give him the card, right? And I said, look, man, these are not these aren't uniformed officers. These are detectives, man. I'm like, you know, and they were asking me some questions about you, and you might want to give them a call. You know what I mean? So anyway, so that's what I tell them, and I give them the card, right? And after that, let's see, trying to remember anything important after that, because, you know, okay, after that, I don't remember too much, because it wasn't too long after that where they come in and they do this raid. But okay, prior to the raid, I remember this, it's Thanksgiving time, right? So it's around Thanksgiving, right? And I remember DeLuna's had like a Thanksgiving dinner, like a free Thanksgiving dinner or something like that, right? And, you know, I like DeLuna's, and so I went over there for that. And I think this would be the 21st. I would have to say it's the 21st, because actually, yeah, I know it's the 21st now. Okay, so it's the 21st, right? And, you know, I go, and, you know, I was a little sketched out by, man, the detective showing up there, you know, because look, you know, the warehouse, you know, like I said, Rory Wilson, you know, and April had cops come there many times, right? And look, it's only a matter of time before you're going to get caught up in something, right? So I didn't want to stay there very long, and I actually told CJ and Michelle this, right? I'm like, you know, I'm trying to be a friend here, but at the same time, I'm not trying to hang out here too long, right? And so anyway, so I remember, you know, the raid at the warehouse. You know, that's what I think. That's what Travis called it. I don't know what you actually call it, but that night, you know, okay, I went to DeLuna's, went and did the whole dinner thing, and this is when I first heard about what had happened up at the Treehouse, right? I hear through a friend of mine, Janice. We were having dinner that night, you know, at the DeLuna's thing, and she told me that.
Objection to hearsay.
Oh. Okay, I was informed.
The objection in terms of the details.
I was informed that, you know, somebody got stabbed in the parking lot up at CVS. That's what I was informed of, right? And so that was my first, you know, hearing of this. Anyway, so but that same night is when this thing happens, as far as the whole raid thing. And I'm telling you, it's the stupidest thing I ever did, man, in this whole thing. Because, okay, they come in, and I'm upstairs, and I'm literally in CJ and Michelle's room, and I had a laptop, you know, kind of like I do now, but I had a laptop, and I was watching TV on the laptop, right? And I was just getting ready, you know, watching, you know, another show. And when they came in, the way that place was laid out, they had like, because it was an old warehouse, right? So they had, the one I was in, you could literally see to downstairs, right? It had like a plexiglass window that went across one of the walls. I imagine it was like an old supervisor, you know, like an old supervisor office or something. But you could look down and you could actually see right downstairs, right? And I hear a bunch of commotion down there. And I look down, you know, from the plexiglass, you know, the window, and I could see the cops banging on the door, right? They're actually, because, okay, it's two separate, you know, Rory's got his in the back. There's this big storage room. And then there's like the stairs that go up to the other, I don't want to say apartments, but the other rooms where people were renting, right? And so they're banging on the door, right? And they've got a battering ram. And there's boom, boom. And then I see they've got ski masks on. They've got assault rifles. There's smoke. I mean, literally, I look down there and I'm just like, oh my God, right? And so anyway, do the dumbest thing that you could possibly ever do. I go out of CJ and Michelle's room, and I come walking down the stairs with my hands up, looking like an idiot, because I'm sitting there going, I'll open the door, just don't shoot. Like they can see me. You know, it's like, you know, so as soon as I open the door, the next thing you know, I've got an assault rifle in my nose, right? And they're leading me out. And, you know, literally I'm like whipped around, handcuffs on, and taken out to a squad car, right? And it's like, and I remember, and one thing I didn't like is I remember as I was going by, seeing Rory Wilson's girlfriend on her stomach. Now, look, April and I didn't like each other, that's true. But she was 8 months pregnant, and seeing her on her belly on the ground did not make me happy. But they take me out to the squad car, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm literally sitting out, do you guys have a warrant? You know, am I being detained? Am I arrested? I mean, you know, the whole thing. I have no idea why I'm being taken out to the squad car, or why even any of this is happening, right? I mean, you know, but based on what the detectives told me that had showed up there a few days earlier, I guess, based on what they told me, I thought it was over drugs. I mean, you know, I thought maybe, you know, they were there for drugs or something, you know, I didn't know. But I just know that, man, they came in, you know, they're coming in like that. They've got a reason, you know, if they're coming in like that. And, so I'm way confused at this point. I have no idea what's going on. And I'm sitting in the back of the squad car, and they left me out there for a while, and I'm still, I have no idea. And eventually somebody got in the driver's seat. I don't remember who it was, but somebody gets in the driver's seat, and, I'm literally I'm asking them a bunch of questions. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And so, eventually they tell me they want to take me down to the station. And I'm like, well, look, I don't have a shirt on. I don't have shoes on. I don't even know what this is over. I'm like, am I being arrested? Any of that stuff, right? And no, it ends up, it actually is Detective Pitcher. He goes and he gets me a shirt. It's like a camouflage shirt, but he gets it from David Gross's room, right? And he brings it down so I at least have a shirt on, right? And so they take me down to the station, right? And when they take me down the station, I'm trying, because again, this is, it's pretty traumatic. I'm not going to say it's not. It's pretty traumatic when that kind of stuff happens. But anyway, not that I've been through it, I've been through it a bunch of times, but I mean, like I said, I'm lucky I didn't get shot going down the stairs. Anyway, so bottom line is they take me into the station. And when they take me in the station, let's see, I don't remember who it was that brought me in. I know they bring me in and they put me in an interrogation room, right? And when they first start talking to me, I'm like, again, I'm wondering why I'm here.
I'm objecting to his testifying to his statements made back then.
I just said I was wondering why. I'm telling you my thought,
I understand, but in terms of the statements that you made at that time, I would sustain the objection.
Are you talking about what I would tell the police?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'll leave that out then. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'll leave that part of the story out. Anyway, so I go into the interrogation room, and at first, they're questioning me, and I'm thinking at the time, okay, remember I said I thought it was over drugs, right? So, and they're asking me these questions, and first that's what I thought they were going. Again, they're asking me because they want to know information, right? So, but then it comes around to the murder, somewhere's in there, right? And they start asking me questions about it, and again, I'm thinking, okay, they asked me what I knew about it, that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I don't want to testify to what they asked me, but but at the time I remember thinking, they just wanted information from me, right? They just want to know what I know, what I've heard, that kind of thing. But somewhere along the lines in there, and it became very clear they thought I had something to do with this, right? And I remember. Oh, wait a second, because I'm forgetting about a part here. They take me out of the interrogation room at some point, and they take me down. They put me in a squad car, right? And I'm still in handcuffs, right? So I'm still in handcuffs, but they put me in the squad car, and they leave me down in the squad car for I don't know how long. It had to be like an hour. I have no idea, but I was in the squad car. And then they bring me back up, and they ask me a bunch more questions, right? And like I said, now it's I'm getting this feeling. I'm like, okay, wait a second, they're not asking me because they think because they just want information. They think I had something to do with this thing, right? And at the time I remember, that they went to that direction, and again, I'm very adamant. I get very adamant once I realize this. I'm like, oh no, but yeah, so I don't know if I can testify to what I said, but I remember, saying it to them. I was like,
Objection to what he said.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, and I won't say what I said then, but I will say this: I was very adamant about not having anything to do with it. So eventually, it gets down to the point where I've been interrogated all night over this thing, and it got to a point. I mean, I was like, look, I'm like, are you going to arrest me? Are you actually going to arrest me? Or am I free to go? Can I get, look, I'm tired of being here. I'm tired of saying the same, giving these answers. Can I go home, or are you going to arrest me for this thing? And they let me go, right? And not only did they let me go, the bad part about that is they made me walk home. And I remember the directive was to, check out the cameras, how many cameras there were, right? And and they did give me, I'll give them this, they gave me slides, because remember I told you I didn't have any shoes. They gave me slides, right? was it the stuff they use in jail, the slides, right? Kind of like flip-flops. Anyway, so they give me those and send me on my way. So now I got to walk all the way home, which, okay, it's a little distance, And so I walked there, and I probably got there, I don't know, I probably got there like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It was early in the morning, and I've been there all night, right? And when I get there, the door is locked, and as we've said, I didn't have a key, right? So, but my stuff is still in there. Now I'm freaked out. I gotta tell you, I'm freaked out, because okay, when they, again, that I've never had that happen, right? So I'm freaked out about the thing. And when, I get there, the door's locked, and I remember I had to throw rocks up at the windows to finally get Travis to come down and open the door, right? So he comes down, he opens up the door, and I tell him what happened. I just tell him what happened to me. I was like, I can't believe it, I can't believe they took me down there, blah, 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 this, that, and that, right? So, anyway, but I don't want to stay there. I don't want to stay there. I'm like, okay, this is way more than this is way more than I want, right? So, I get my stuff together, and I literally grab all my stuff, and I tell CJ Michelle. I called up CJ Michelle, and I was like, look, look, it's all good, you guys, man, but I can't stay here. You know what I'm saying? I can't stay here anymore. And I remember them asking me if I would at least grab, like, they had family photos and pictures of kids and stuff like that. And they asked me if I would grab that and take it down to Burger King and drop it off there, right? And I was like, yes, I can at least do that for you, So I grabbed a bunch of the pictures, man, from their room, and I tried to grab, anything, that could be of value or sentimental value to them, right? Because now I'm leaving, and I'm not staying there. And so, yeah, I grab all that. I put it into a bag for him, and I grab my stuff, and I head on out, and I go ahead. And this is, I don't know, it's I don't remember what time of day it is. I know it's morning, like I said, I got there probably like 5, 6 o'clock, so I don't remember how long it took them to open the door or anything like that. But I did grab, some stuff, dropped it off at Burger King, and I do remember I called 2 people that day. I called my friend Cliff, and I called one of my brothers, Jeff. He's not blood related brother, but he is my brother in every sense. But yes, so I go ahead and I call them because I'm freaked out, right? Because I knew when they let me go, I knew that okay, they let me go, but I got the distinct impression that, man, no, they thought I had something to do with this, and they were, this was not going to be the last time that they talked to me about this. And, I was scared. I'm going to tell you, straight up, I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, I can't explain to anybody, the feeling. But I was scared. So that's why I called them up, because I was like, look, man, everything everything.
Judging to what he was telling these people?
Oh, I'm talking about my head.
All right.
But anyway, in my mind at that point, yeah, everything was telling me, man, it's like, you need to get out of here, right? These people, man, they think you had something to do with this, and but then the other side of me is going, if I take off, they're going to think I did it, So I have this little war going on in my head, and anyway, so I went from Burger King and I started walking down towards Key West, right? Because there's that little bridge and park and stuff there. And I remember as I came across the bridge, there was a couple guys there, and they're drinking off of a liter of Skull or whatever. It's the Rock Gut vodka. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I need one. I was like, you might, So I sat there with them, took a couple hits off that, and I eventually end up down at McDonald's, right? And when I get down to McDonald's, and then I'm still sketched out. I'm sketched out about the whole thing. And I don't know what to do, to be honest. I just don't know what to do. It's like, man, I've never found myself in this position before. I don't know what to do. So anyway, I get on, because I went to McDonald's because they have free Wi-Fi there, right? So I could get on my laptop, because I always had a laptop in my backpack, right? So I get on my laptop, and I'm not even sure what I'm doing, to be honest. I really wasn't sure on what I was doing at that point. I didn't know. So anyway, but that's when Paula shows up. And Paula and I, we weren't friends, right? But we knew each other. It's like, it's one of those things, you know, small island, and you know, and we know who lives in the neighborhood. We know who lives on the island. You know, it's like you run into each other. Hey, you know, how you doing? How's it going? You know, that kind of thing. But I don't know that much about her. You know, I mean, you know, so anyway, so I run into Paula, and I remember, because I was feeling so bad and so sorry for myself for, man, being interrogated, you know, for overnight, you know, being interrogated for this thing all night, and I'm scared, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, I guess, right? And I remember seeing Paula, and she had a bandage on her neck from the night, right? And I remember seeing her, and I was just like, and all of a sudden I felt like such a, I mean, I'm not trying to curse, I guess, but I felt really bad, right? Because I was like, here I am feeling sorry for myself, and then I see her, right? And she's bruised up, and she has the thing on her neck, and it's like, and when, you know, and I told her what happened to me. I told her that they took me down to the station. I told her, you know, what happened, and the thing is Paula, you know, Paula, yes, she did cry, and yes, she did, you know, cry on my shoulder, and you know, and I told you I felt horrible, because it was just like, it's like, again, here I am feeling bad because they grilled me all night, and then I saw and heard from her experience, right? And no, I just felt bad about it. It's like, okay, you know, here I am again. I guess it's the somebody always has something worse thing, you know. There's always
Objection to the self-serving statements, Judge.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. You
Thank
can
you, Your Honor.
continue.
Anyway, so it was definitely, again, while I was still not certain about what was going to happen here, you know, but it definitely put me in a different mindset to see her, right? And but anyway, so after I saw her, I remember I went back to COTS, because now I'm going to COTS, and I'm, you know, not going back to the warehouse. I don't want nothing to do with it, right? So I go back to COTS, and you know, they had again another little Thanksgiving dinner thing there, and you know, I had some of that, you know, whatever, and then I went into where the bunk is, and this is when I get arrested, right? And when I got arrested, you know, because you know, Detective Pitcher was you know, one of the ones who talked to me when they were doing their interviews, and I remember him leading the charge, but there was a good amount of officers, and they were coming in from both sides, and I remember looking up at him, and I was like, I guess we're not talking now, are we? And he's like, no. And so anyway, so they arrest me, and they take me over to the jail, right? And I'm out, and the whole time I'm kind of flipping, and I'm like, literally, like, I'm like telling them I didn't have anything to do with this, and you know, and so I'm telling them this stuff, and somewhere along the lines I get told that it's about witness tampering, right? And I'm like, I thought it was over Paula. I thought it was because I talked to her at McDonald's. And I was like, nobody told me I couldn't talk to her, right? But that's not what it ends up being about, and I won't testify as to what it was, because I think that would, Mr. Mansfield probably object to it. But at the same time, so you know, so I'm thinking, you know, again, and my head is spinning again. And okay, so now I'm in jail, and they take me, and they literally, okay, the jail has the elevator, goes up, they take me in. I remember getting booked, you know, kind of booked in, whatever the hell, you know, whatever that is, where they check in, whatever, right? But they do that, and this is, you know, I'm not going to say I haven't been to jail before. I've been to Key West jail one other time, and it was for misdemeanors, right? Boat charges, you know, it was nothing. I mean, I can't say it was nothing, but you know, it was misdemeanors. But anyway, so the thing is they take me right to the back, right? And they put down all these brown paper bags, and there's a bunch of guards around me, and they literally make me drop all my clothes right down the bag, and they put me in the black and white stripes, and then they put me in chains head to toe. I mean, chains, you know, like chains. And they take me right to solitary, right? Now, again, I've been to jail before, right? Never for anything close to this. And the thing is and I've never had an experience like it, you know, ever. But they take me there, they put me in solitary, and my mind is spinning. I can't even explain to you guys what it's like. You know, it's like, I just didn't know. Look, I was a normal guy a second ago, and now I'm sitting in a jail cell, and I'm, you know, being put in chains, and man, everybody's, you know, people are telling me I'm a murderer, you know. And so I'm in there, and I'm in the solitary. And solitary is weird. It's 23.
Objection to the relevance of solitary.
Well, I'm just telling the story. I mean,
Oh,
look,
I
you can tell me where to stop if you want.
Well, I could sustain that objection.
Yeah, I mean, okay. And I'm not exactly sure what is relevant of anything. I'm just telling the story.
I understand, Mr. Tucker, but
Anyway, so yeah, I go to jail, and you know, over the course of time, I mean, you know, it's you know, I guess it's not really relevant as far as now. I meet my wife. I shouldn't say meet my wife. I've known her since we were kids, but she was the first person to contact me. You know, she was the first person to contact me when I got there, and I think it was like day 7, and I was surprised. I was really surprised because we hadn't seen each other in 33 years, you know, and I can't even tell you. But anyway, the thing is so yeah, you know, she comes, and by this point, you know, I still didn't have a lawyer. I was still in solitary. I still don't know why I'm there. You know, I have no idea why I'm there, really. I mean, I know what they're saying. I don't know.
Objection, Judge, to this.
I just,
okay.
We're rambling here. It's
Well,
not
I
relevant.
don't, rambling, but I'm not sure how much what we're hearing here is not relevant, so,
would you like me to?
well, if we'd like a little direction, we can excuse the jurors, or,
Yeah, I'll take direction. I'll take direction. I mean,
well,
you know, it's like, I just don't know what.
I understand.
Where you want me to
I'm
go?
just suggesting that it would be prudent, in my view, for just a moment or two to excuse the jurors, and we'll get back to you shortly. Okay, have a seat. So,
Judge,
I just wanted to excuse the jurors. I mean, not finding fault, Mr. Tucker has, you know, certainly comported himself well on the witness stand. It's just that when you start to get into the circumstances of incarceration, of reuniting with ultimately his wife and the like, you objected. That's objectionable.
Yes, Judge, it is objectionable. He's courting sympathy from the jury,
Well,
trying to tell them how horrible solitary is. I mean, it's not relevant or anything.
I understand. I agree with you. I'm not sure if he's intentionally trying to do that. I didn't get that impression. I got the impression he was telling his story. And I didn't attribute any ill motive. I understand the potential effect that it could have. That's why I sustained your objection, and it's why I excused the jurors to try to give some direction so we don't have to keep going back and forth.
Very well.
So,
I mean,
Your
I
Honor.
understand he's being allowed to testify in the narrative, but, you know, getting into how devastating this was for him and all the thought process, I mean, what's the purpose of that other than the court?
well,
Your Honor, I mean,
go
if I
ahead.
may.
Go ahead.
Look, you got to understand, this was an extremely emotional experience, and it's like when I'm trying to remember this, it is hard for me. You know, this was not something pleasant. It wasn't something cool.
Of course not.
You know, and it's hard for me to bring it up and not bring, you know, not have emotions about it.
I
I'm sorry.
understand that. I mean, I
sorry.
think for most, the vast majority of human beings, it would be extremely traumatic, devastating, life-altering, whatever strong words you want to use to experience that. And I get it. And I think I've given quite a bit of leeway in terms of you, quote-unquote, telling your story. But at this particular point, I'm not sure how much else is relevant.
Yeah,
That's-
I would ask the same thing. You know, what else would you like me to go into? I mean, how far back do you want me to go? I mean, I did miss the one in there. There is the one where I go to Metro PCS. I haven't talked about that. because that is one of the things that got me arrested.
Well,
You know, so I don't know.
I
I don't know what
can't-
you want to know.
I can't tell you what I would like you to go into or wouldn't like you to go into. The only thing I can say is that I feel I've granted quite a bit of leeway, but, you know, in terms of the building up to the event, if you will, the aftermath, your experience with law enforcement,
Yeah.
your experience being arrested, but how much, I don't think there's much room for any more of that unless there's
There's a couple
something that you're gonna say was seized from you, or you're gonna try to explain away some statement that you made.
No, Your Honor, but there are a couple of important things that I actually forgot to tell the jury at this point. Not anything. I don't think it's going to take very long. There's just a couple of things as I'm going through this. I mean, I forgot to tell them about Metro PCS because to me it really didn't mean anything at the time,
Okay.
but it does later. You know,
Okay,
so
well, that's factual in nature, but, and I'm not saying
But I mean,
solitary isn't factual, but that's really not relevant to the proof or the defense. That's just the, what should we say, the fraud of being arrested. It doesn't go to the elements of the crime or a defense.
No,
right?
no, it doesn't, Your Honor. It's just thinking about it. It's just it was like, okay, I didn't know where to end there, and I can end that. I can end that right there. That's
I
fine.
understand that, and you did kind of indicate an amenability to seeking some sort of direction, and that's why I excuse the jurors to try to do so.
Thank you.
So I think we've
Yeah, I think we've gone.
given
I
as
mean,
much
that
of
far,
that as
yeah.
we can in terms of direction, and so
I'd say there's a couple more pieces, and that's
Okay.
it. Just
All
to
right.
make sure that again, they get the full picture here.
I understand that. But so let's bring them in, please.
All jurors present in the courtroom, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. Welcome back, members of the jury. The defendant remains on the witness stand and is going to continue his direct testimony. So you can proceed.
Okay, and I was just look, I think we agreed that stopping where story where that part is probably a good idea. But there were a couple of things I forgot in there that happened along the way. I go at one point, and this is before I get arrested. I go to Metro PCS, and I'm going to pay my phone bill. Right, that's all I'm going. I'm going over there, and I'm going to go over to Burger King and get something to eat. And I remember Roy Wilson. He's outside of he's outside the warehouse, and I just happened to be going out, and he asked if he could walk with me. Right, I'm like, okay. Again, at this point I don't know anything, so it's like I'm like, okay. So we walk over there, and this becomes something later, but I didn't think of anything of it at the time, But we go over there, and I pay my phone bill, and but this is before the raid, and it becomes something later. But the thing is that I just figured that had to be in there just because, again, it does become part of the story. So does, the whole Fantasy Fest thing, that becomes part of the story too. Because, I guess I can't testify to what those pieces are. I guess I'll save that for my close. But I felt it necessary to tell you about that trip. And then I just want to make sure that we've got everything here. Because, there's anything else I can remember from the time period that's actually relevant to the situation. Now, I can tell you this, because somebody else asked me this not too long ago, and they asked me if I had ever been to the Treehouse before, right? And yes, I've been to the Treehouse 3 times in my life, right? I was there once because when I first got back to Key West, right, I had gotten back and I was coming from Arizona, right? And I get back to Key West, and yeah, rents here are high. Everybody knows that, right? And I saw an ad in the paper, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. But it was Matt. And it's the only time I've ever met the victim, right? It's the only time. And he was renting out the flats on the Treehouse, right, for $350 a month, if I remember correctly. And, you know, and the thing is, you know, I go there to check it out because, like I said, I'm pretty sure it was an ad in the paper or something like that, right? But I go there and, you know, because I'm looking for a place to stay. I just got back, right? So I'm looking for a place to stay. And when I got there, I was like, okay, it's these flats on the Treehouse, and it's built up. It's like a deck on a deck on a deck, I guess. And, you know, I'm looking at that. And then, you know, for the bathroom facilities, it was like a trailer in the back, and it was like a caved-in roof, if I remember correctly, and there's a toilet in there, nothing else, right? And I'm like, for $350 a month, I ain't doing it, right? I'm just not doing it, right? But not, that's not to say that Matt wasn't. Matt was actually a nice guy, you know. I mean, it's the only time I've ever met him, and he was a nice guy. He was, you know, that's about all. I mean, like I said, I didn't get to know him or anything like that, but you know, he showed me around, showed me what he had, and I just said no. That's all it was. And the other 2 times I was there was at Todd O'Quinn. I knew Todd O'Quinn, and Todd O'Quinn, you know, we went to the bar a couple times. You know, went down to the Hogfish, and I had a little bit too much to drink or whatever, and you know, I couldn't get all the way back to, you know, either Cots or, you know, I stayed at a couple different places, but yeah. And I couldn't make it all the way back because, again, remember, this is after the storm. You know, I'm still trying to rebuild. You know, and so anyway, I you know, I remember staying there two nights. Like there's 2 different times, but different times, not 2 nights in a row, but 2 different time periods. And just because I couldn't make it back. And I remember one night, I don't know if Paula remembers, but I remember one night she woke me up yelling at me. But yeah, and it's like, you know, but the thing is so yeah, those are the only 3 times that I've been to the Treehouse. And let's see, and then what was the other one? There was something else somebody asked me not too long ago, and I think it's kind of relevant. Trying to remember. It's like, because yeah, that takes care of that, but I'm trying to remember here. Oh no, somebody asked me if I knew Matt, and like I said, I've already answered that question. It was, I met him once, you know. As far as anything else, I'm trying to think of anything else that you guys need to know. I don't know. I guess Mr. Mansfield can remind me now. I guess I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cross.
Okay, thank you. Is there any cross-examination?
Yes, Judge. So, Mr. Tucker, your story in front of this jury today is you were drunk that day.
Yep.
Plastered.
Yep.
You're drinking highballs, red balls, what you call them?
Fireball.
Fireballs. What's a fireball?
I'm surprised you don't know, but okay.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
No, you're wrong. I was getting ready. I'm answering your question. Fireball is it's a whiskey. It's cinnamon whiskey. You know, it's very popular. That's why I said I'm surprised.
And that's what you drank. That's what you were drinking the day that this all happened.
Yes, sir.
Got so drunk you went back to the warehouse, went upstairs, fell asleep,
Knocked out.
knocked out.
Yep.
Now you were at the warehouse. You said you had been there on and off, right?
Well, not necessarily on and off. I mean, I actually staying there. I think there was only 2 times. You know, there was during the hurricane, and then there was the time period. You know, for CJ and Michelle. Other than that, I knew a couple people who lived there, and yes, man, I'd stop by there every once in a while.
So you were basically house sitting for CJ and Michelle.
Yes, sir.
But this is not a apartment building, right? This is like a flop house. People are renting rooms or hanging out in rooms.
I wouldn't call it that. And the thing is you know, because that's a fairly derogatory term. And
Okay, the question is very simple. It's not a rentable apartment building where you rent rooms.
Okay, to put it this way, Was the landlord doing something illegal? Sure. Did everybody else know that
It's
they
not the
weren't supposed to
question,
be there?
Mr. Tucker.
Well, I don't
The
know what you're
question's
asking.
the question is very specific.
Okay, be
Okay?
specific.
It's not a place where you rent apartments. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, because they had apartments there for rent.
Okay. There were actual legitimate apartments for rent in this
They're literally-
warehouse.
And that's why I was answering your question the way I did. Legitimate, no, the landlord was not. He's subletting this thing, and he built apartments in it.
So you were house sitting for your friends, right?
Yes,
And that's the only reason you were even staying at the place at that point in time.
yes.
But you didn't have another place to live, right? You were going, you said
No, I mean, the
cops.
thing is, yeah, I was actually saving up for a boat. I actually had money in my pocket.
Okay, I didn't ask you about money in your pocket. You were actually staying at a homeless shelter known as Cops.
Yes,
Is that
I was.
correct?
Yes, I was.
All right. So you didn't have a permanent home,
No.
and you did your share of partying during this time,
Yes.
right? You said it was Fantasy Fest, and this
Yep.
is what you do at Fantasy Fest. You tie one on for a couple of weeks. You said, right?
Oh, yeah. Around Fantasy Fest time, yeah, of course.
It goes on for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, yeah, probably every Fantasy Fest I've ever been to.
Gentleman approach,
Yes?
showing what's been previously marked as whiskey for identification. You recognize that?
Sure do.
And what is that?
That would be me.
And is that how you looked at back in November?
It sure is.
Seek to move in, W?
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor. I'm just wondering what the relevance of what I looked like back then. But
I mean, if there's an objection.
no,
you're
it's
otherwise-
okay. We can go ahead and put it in.
All right, so admit as dates next in order.
18.
Thank you, Ms. Violet. So this is how you look back in 2017, right? Pretty full goatee.
Oh, yeah. Big full goatee.
Big full goatee, right? Yep. Kind of thing that would be hard to cover if you were putting a mask on that stopped at the chin, right?
I wouldn't say that. I actually wouldn't say that.
Wouldn't
Because
agree with
I
that?
mean, again, that would be speculation, so I'll object.
Okay, so you don't agree that it would be hard to cover if you just had a simple face mask?
I'm not going to agree to that at all. Because, man, again, I'm not saying
Certainly
it
easier
would.
to-
I'm not saying it wouldn't.
Certainly easier to cover with a neck gaiter, right? You pull the neck gaiter up, it covers the mouth, the chin, everything.
The thing is here's the thing: is that whole neck gaiter thing. I didn't know what one was until after I heard your client say it. Or
Didn't
I
know
should
what a
say
neck
not
gaiter
your
was.
client, but whatever.
Didn't know what a neck gaiter was.
No, I didn't actually, to be honest.
All right, so now you're living at this warehouse. You know Rory Wilson, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You guys are hanging out now and then, right?
Yeah, probably. I
Partying
like I said,
together?
I don't know. You know, like again, I didn't go over there all the time because April and I did not get along. So, not trying to hang out with her too much.
April didn't like you.
No, she did not.
You didn't like her.
No, I did not, actually. Now, did we hang out sometimes? Sure. And I remember there's times we did party. You know, that was like, I remember one time we went downtown, you know, Rory Wilson. Because again, here's the thing is I remember this during the hurricane. They had, was it the hogfish they were
Mr.
giving-
Tucker, I'm going to cut you off, sir. There's no question pending. Did you hang out socially or not with April Walker and Rory
No,
Wilson?
April Walker I tried not to. And, you know, I'm not saying she didn't come looking for Rory a couple times, but yeah, I tried not to. But Rory Wilson, yes, I did hang out with him on a few occasions.
And you heard that
Excuse
out.
me one second. Is that exhibit being published, or are you going to take it back to the?
Oh, I've already published it, Judge. I already
Okay,
sent
so
it.
we're going to either put it on the podium, or let's bring it to the
Okay.
clerk. Thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Tucker, so you heard the testimony, right? You heard that there was an allegation that you threatened April Walker.
Oh, I've heard that testimony, but testimony wasn't true.
So you didn't threaten
Oh, no.
Wilson's pregnant,
Oh,
9 months
no.
pregnant girlfriend.
Oh, no.
You
No,
actually
no, no.
felt bad for her because she was put on the ground during the
Yes,
raid.
I did. And man, look, even if I don't like somebody, you know, again, seeing them on the ground in that position when she's 8 months pregnant, yes, that's not cool. You know, that's bottom line. I didn't like her, but that doesn't mean you put her on the ground in that position.
Now, you testified that you went up to CVS with Rory Wilson that night.
No, I did not.
When did you and Rory Wilson go to CVS and for you
To
to
tell
get
you the honest
smoke?
truth, that was put to me by investigators. They said that, but again, I told you I was drunk that day, and I'm sitting there and I tried to remember it, and man, I'm sitting there going, I don't remember doing that,
But you just testified to this jury that you went to CVS to get
Oh,
cigarettes.
I went to
wasn't it?
Tom Thumb
Tom
to get
Thumb, okay.
cigarettes, and it wasn't
Tom
with
Thumb.
Roy Wilson, it was with Travis.
With Travis.
Right.
You and Travis went. Let's
So
talk
let's
about
get the
Travis.
story straight.
You and Travis were acquaintances, right?
Yes, we were acquaintances.
Okay. Travis was staying at the warehouse as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Matter of fact, you and Travis were both staying upstairs in the warehouse, right?
Yeah, when I was staying in CJ and Michelle's room, yes.
Travis was in another room upstairs.
Yes, he was upstairs. But you got to remember, he also went to jail, so, I mean, he wasn't there for a second, so.
Right? But he came back about a week later, right?
To be honest, I don't remember how long it was. I know I was at work when he went to jail.
Let me ask you, Mr. Tucker, was Travis there the day of the raid?
That's the thing is, he wasn't there in the beginning, right? Because the man, he wasn't there.
Was he there when they took you down and put you in the police car?
No, he wasn't there for that.
Was he there when they took
He
you
wasn't
off
there
to-
for that part of it. At least not that I know of, right?
Was he there when
wasn't
they took you off to jail?
Was he there when no? So when I went to jail, I was at Cots. And when I went to jail, I wasn't. They didn't grab me from the warehouse. They grabbed me from Cots.
The night of the raid, they didn't take you down and then let you go?
They did take me down and let me go, but that wasn't taking me to jail. That was taking me down and interrogating me all night.
Okay, so the night they took you down to interrogate you, was Travis there when you guys left the warehouse to go down and be
Hold on,
interrogated?
hold on. Let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly. Please repeat the question.
The night of the raid,
Right, gotcha.
when they took you down, not to jail, but to question you.
Right, gotcha.
Was Travis at the warehouse when you guys left to go to the police station?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know.
And how
'Cause
did
I
you get
was-
to the police station that night?
I
They
got
took you?
there in a squad car in handcuffs.
Okay. Now, let's see, you said that while you were in this, after you got arrested, you were in jail and you got reacquainted with an old high school friend of yours.
I thought that wasn't relevant.
You just testified to it, sir.
Okay, well, in that case, yes, I did.
I'm going to ask you, just answer the questions if you could.
Yeah.
And if there's a relevance objection, you can make it.
Thank you.
But you don't need to question me.
Okay.
You said you were in jail.
Yes.
And you got reacquainted with this high
Yes.
school wife or girlfriend of yours who became your wife.
Well, actually, again, she wasn't my high school girlfriend. She wasn't, she was a friend that I knew from when I was 14 years old. And yes, I hadn't seen her in 33 years.
And you guys ended up getting married, right?
Yes, we did.
And she is actually very wealthy, isn't she?
Multimillionaires.
I beg your pardon?
Multimillionaires.
And you guys are you married today to her?
Yes, I am.
Going beyond, I'm sorry, but I cut him off, your objection, and
Okay, Judge, well, he just testified about his wife.
he mentioned it, and you touched upon within the scope, but I believe
Okay.
this is beyond the scope.
I have no
and
problem talking about my wife.
Okay,
I understand, but I do.
all right, so now, you're not in jail the entire time waiting for your trial, right?
No, that's not true. I was in jail for 2 years.
And then you actually got out pending your
Yeah,
trial.
$2 million bond.
Let's talk about Paula, your relationship with Paula Belmont.
Okay?
You just testified that you weren't great friends in the beginning, you just kind of knew of each other, right?
That is true.
She testified you'd never been to the Treehouse, but that's not accurate, right? Because you testified you'd actually been there
Well,
3 times.
I don't remember her ever testifying to that, but she may not have remembered it. It was one time. That's it.
I thought you said 3 times you'd been
No,
there.
I've been there 3 times, but Paula, and she woke me up one time yelling at me.
Okay.
Because, man, I wasn't supposed to be there, apparently. I don't know. But, man, the thing is, she woke me up and she was yelling at me. I don't even know if she remembers it.
And now, describe your relationship with Paula today.
Paula's one of my best friends.
One of your best friends,
Yes.
all right? I'm going to show you what's been previously marked for identification. There's a deposit, 2 photos, Sierra, 1 and 2. Do you recognize these photos?
I sure do.
And what do they depict?
They depict me and Paula at the hospital when I'm trying to make her feel better and making funny faces at the camera.
Is that, when were these shots taken?
Very recently.
Judge, at this time, I think to move in states Exhibit S for identification.
Any objection?
Nope.
All right, admit S,
19A and B.
all right.
Gotta change the date on this.
I think it's going very well. I think he's holding up very well.
Daddy?
So you said these were taken recently, like in the last 2 weeks?
Actually, you want to know exactly which day? I think I can remember.
Sure, go ahead.
It was the day that I actually, went over there to check on her because she said, she said that, she was, her doctor said that it had taken it worse. It was the day before I came in here and asked for the motion.
And then she lay in bed with her. Didn't she have some kind of an infectious disease or something?
Hence the bodysuit.
But she had no mask on that picture.
That's true.
Tongue's hanging out?
Took a chance. I was trying to make her feel better.
And you said you become pretty good friends with her, right?
Like I said, she's one of my best friends.
Well, what's changed? Now you said you were not always friends, and now you're best friends with her. What changed?
Well, I don't know if you know the story of how that happened, but I'll go ahead and tell it to you if you want me to.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Paula was a victim in the crime, right? And now I am an accused murderer at that point, right? And here it is when this all happened, that makes it so that I can't talk to Paula, right? I'm not allowed to communicate with her. That makes sense, right? They had a protective order that immediately went in, and I couldn't talk to her. Paula, she gets diagnosed with COPD, right? And Paula, she actually files a motion with the court, right? Because she wants to, and she goes on the press and she starts saying this on the press, right? She wants to apologize to me for her role in anything that they've done to me. That's what she says.
So she's
And the judge
apologizing to you.
She wants to. She can't talk to me, right? So she wants to.
Now you're aware in the beginning she couldn't ID the second person, right?
Look, I'm aware in the beginning.
Very simple question. You are aware, yes or no, that in the beginning, when she was first spoken
Mr.
to,
Mansfield.
she could not. Mr. Tucker,
You're
listen to
asking
the
me to
question,
remember
okay?
6 years ago and
It's a
then
very
what,
simple
and what I
question.
thought then.
Are you aware?
Gentlemen, let him finish the question, then you can answer.
Yeah, let me answer it.
Okay, but he hasn't finished the question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr.
Ask away.
Thank you. Are you aware that 6 years ago, when she was first interviewed by the police, she could not ID the second person? Are you aware of that, yes or no?
I'm going to tell you, I'm aware that she could not positively ID the second person, man, when this first happened. No.
And she was able to identify Roy Wilson, but not the second person, correct?
Yes, she did not positively ID the second person.
Well, she said she didn't get a good look at the second person, right?
That's not true.
She said that she was focused on Roy Wilson at the time, and
I
that
object, Your
the
Honor.
second person
I object, Your Honor.
she
He's
couldn't get a
asking me
look
to go
at.
what I know from video and what I know from police reports now.
I
That's
sustain the objection. There are varying statements that she's made.
Yep.
So, at one point she said it, but presumably you're aware of other statements.
right.
Okay.
Because again, I watched all these videos and I read
So
all
let's go
this
back to
stuff.
that first night when she's interviewed. She says she can't ID the second person, right? Didn't get a good
Excuse
look
me,
at her.
hold on. Excuse me, which night are we talking about?
The night of the crime when she's
Okay.
being interviewed.
Again, you're asking me to go to video, you're asking me to go to police reports, and that is hearsay, so
Are
I'll
you
object.
aware that she was
Object.
unable to identify the second person?
Excuse me?
Are you aware she was unable to identify the second person
At which time period?
the night of the crime?
Again, you're asking me to go to police reports, you're asking me to commit hearsay.
Simple question, sir.
So, objection.
Okay, I'm going to overrule that objection.
Okay.
It's just your awareness
Okay.
of one
My
point
awareness-
in time and one statement.
My awareness at the time, right, and if I can, and I'm going to have to remember this because the Lord knows I've gone over this a million times, so I'm going to have to think about my memory here. At the time, as far as even any statements by Paula, hold on a second, because okay, I was in jail when this first happened.
I'm asking
Right?
you as you sit here,
sir,
Mr.
you're asking
Tucker,
me to
I'm
remember.
asking you as you sit here today, not where your mind was back then, as you sit here today.
Okay, as I sit here today,
Are you aware that she could not ID the second person
And
on the
you're
night
asking-
it happened?
Okay, and you're asking me to commit hearsay.
I don't believe that's the case, so you
Oh, okay.
can answer it, and
Okay.
remember, you'll have the opportunity for
Okay,
re-
as
Mr.
I
Tucker,
sit
Mr.
here
Tucker,
today.
Just let me
Oh, sorry.
finish. You'll have the opportunity for redirect.
Okay, thank
So if you, after this is finished, want to elaborate on certain things, you may, but in terms of succinct answer to this question, you do
Yeah,
need to give.
I'll give you a succinct answer to this question. Okay, it depends on the time period as far as Paula. As today, I could definitely tell you that different time periods, she said different things. I can say that.
And you're aware that the very night it happened, she did not identify the second person?
The very night it happened, again, that's the only reason I would even remember this right now is because we've been going over it recently.
Correct.
And I'm going over it, and she had varying statements at that point.
Well, you're certainly aware that at the perpetuated testimony,
Yes.
she was able to say it wasn't you as the second person, right?
I'm also aware that she was, again, coerced into making statements by police, so, okay.
Didn't ask you about that, sir. Very simple question.
Well, if you're
You
gonna-
were
if you're
aware-
gonna lead me- if
You
you're
were
gonna lead me-
aware that during her perpetuated testimony that you sat and watched,
Yes.
you observed her adamantly
Yes.
stating it was
Yes.
Tucker's not the second guy, right?
Yep, I sure did.
That was 4 years after the crime was committed.
That was
about 3 years.
That was 4 years after the crime was committed.
Well, September of 20 would be
Yeah.
about 3 years, right?
Okay, somewhere in there. But here's the thing.
And there's no question pending, sir. I'm asking the questions you're answering.
Go ahead.
Okay? That's how this works.
Okay, go for it. Ask me another question. I'll take any ones you got.
Great. Good to hear it.
Yeah. That's why I put myself up here.
Now, she testified that she had talked to your wife through Facebook. Did you also communicate with her through Facebook?
No, I was not allowed.
So you never had any communications with her?
No, not on Facebook at that time.
Have you had any? You saw her at McDonald's after the crime, right?
Yes, but I was not under arrest at that point. I was not under a protective order at that point.
Okay, but when you saw her at McDonald's, you guys had a conversation there, right?
Yes, we did.
And did you tell her anything about the crime when you saw her at McDonald's?
I told her what had happened to me, about the police interrogating me, and she did ask me some questions. I remember that. I remember answering, different questions as she asked them. I remember she told me her experience. She told me how horrible it was. I remember, like I said, sitting there feeling like, you talk about feeling, God, not sorry for somebody. That's the wrong way to say it.
So you
but
communicated
whatever.
with, is it fair to say you communicated with her at McDonald's?
Yes.
Now, is it your testimony today that you've not communicated with her directly at all from that moment until today?
No. When did I
Okay.
say that?
So tell us about those communications. You said you weren't allowed to
Okay.
talk to her, right?
Yes, sir. And I
Okay,
also said
and when did that end?
I also said she filed a motion with the court to be able to talk to me, and that, yes, she was going on the press saying these things, that she wanted to apologize to me. Judge Jones granted that motion, and
you've
she
had
was allowed to talk
communications.
to me.
And
that's when, and now we
you've
are.
had general communications with her ever
Please,
since.
He was still
Sorry,
testifying.
I'm just telling
No,
you.
I'm not talking to you. I'm saying, if you weren't complete with your answer, go ahead.
Yeah, look, there comes a point where.
Judge, again, there's no question
No,
pending.
well, he was still answering the
Thank you.
last question.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
go, finish your answer to the last question.
Judge Jones granted the order allowing us to be able to talk. And that day, yeah, I was in tears.
Okay, so you got the in tears part out. The jury heard it.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, great. Let's move on. So you've talked to her, admittedly, since then.
Oh, quite a bit.
Quite a bit, right?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Do you remember her taking a trip to California?
Vaguely, yes.
She posted pictures of it, right?
If I remember right, she posted pictures of Woody.
Of who?
She likes Woody from, I guess, I forget what the name of the movie is. It's some Disney thing, man. But she likes a character named Woody.
Oh, Woody from Toy Story.
That's what it is. Thank you.
1 minute, please, Judge.
All right?
I'm not sure if we could talk at that time, though.
I'm sorry?
Will he show this to me before he brings it? Will he show this to me before he brings it?
Not necessarily. This one.
checking.
That's fine.
I'm-
He's got it.
it's weird.
He's certainly going to give you an opportunity, and, you know, you can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker, showing you with marked Tango 1 through 5 composite.
Okay.
Recognize these photos?
Let me see. Yes, they're from Paul Belmont's Facebook page, and the thing is, I don't think we were talking at that time.
How do you know her from her Facebook page?
Because I've seen her Facebook page.
So, do you remember seeing these on her Facebook page?
Yeah, I don't understand the relevance of them.
Judge, at this time, I seek to move in what's been previously marked as Tango 1 through 5.
Okay, is there any objection?
Again, I'd like to know the relevance of the pictures.
Okay, you're objecting to
Yeah, relevance.
Okay, so we'll have to have a bench conference then. So come on around.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so let's pick it back up. You're aware of her trip to California, right?
Yes, I am.
She took pictures with Woody, you said, right?
Yep. I think she takes them pretty much on every trip she goes on.
All right. Ever since that order was lifted, you've had pretty steady communication with her. Is that fair to say?
Fairly steady. Sometimes, man, a little more, sometimes less.
Now, you talked about this friend, Big somebody. What's his name again?
Big Scott.
Big Scott.
Yep.
Big Scott was staying at the warehouse with everybody?
No, he was not. He was there that night, yes, but
Which night is that, sir?
that would be, I guess that would be the night of the crime. Because again, you know, like I said, I went go get cigarettes with Travis, come back, and Big Scott is at the door.
And so Big Scott, was he a friend of yours or an acquaintance? How would you describe him?
Actually, he's a friend, you know, and he was a friend of, well, I think he was a friend of a couple people there.
And at some point, are you aware of Big Scott telling you and Travis and Rory, I don't know what you guys are plotting, but I want nothing to do with it? Do you remember that comment?
No,
No?
no.
When did you first learn that Mr. Bonnett had been murdered?
I told you that already. I told you that already.
Okay, but you need.
I didn't. Well, actually, I shouldn't say I knew Mr. Bonnet got murdered at that point. At that point, the first time I heard anything about what had happened at the Treehouse, and it wasn't even the Treehouse. Where, you know, they told me somebody got stabbed in the CVS parking lot. That's the first time I heard about it.
So the way you heard about it, the stabbing
Yes.
was alleged to have happened in the CVS parking lot.
Right. The next time I heard about it, I was at the police station.
Is that when you found out it was actually at this Treehouse location?
Yes.
And that's when you were talking to Detective Pitcher, right?
That would be Detective Pitcher, Danielle Malone, and Captain Phelps.
Now, at some point, didn't you tell Detective Pitcher what you told this jury today, that you were not involved and that you were sleeping off, you were drunk and sleeping it off or something?
Yeah, I told him, man, I told him the same thing. I couldn't remember much, man, from the night. And yes, I remember passing out. I remember waking up.
Right.
Because I needed cigarettes, and I went to was it the Tom Thumb, and Travis went with me.
And that's what you told Detective Pitcher, correct?
Yes, it is.
And you even told Detective Pitcher that, just ask Travis, he'll back you up, right?
I thought so. I didn't know anything was wrong.
All right. Well, Travis didn't back you up, did he?
No, he didn't.
Travis
There's a
came
good reason
clean
for that.
and gave a statement to the police, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And,
Okay.
you know,
It's just a
again-
yes, no?
Okay. Yes, he
Need your
did.
commentary on it?
Yes, he did.
Do you remember when you saw Paula at McDonald's in this whole timeline? When did you run into her at McDonald's? The very next day? Was it 2 days later? 3 days later?
It was, let's see, hold on. It would have been, okay, because the raid, suppose, you know, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it, that happens on the 21st. Going into the 22nd is when I'm literally being interrogated all night. That day, whatever that day is, that would probably be, that would be the 22nd again, because it ends that morning. So, okay, 22nd, it would be on the 22nd.
Okay. And let me ask you, Mr. Tucker, you were making pretty good money, right? $300 an hour to put these blue tarps up?
Yeah, I was doing all right.
What's the reason you hadn't gotten a place? You know, you were still living in these
Well, because
temporary
again,
places.
I lived on a boat before, right? And as I testified, I was trying to save up for a new boat. There are going to be plenty of cheap ones around, but here's the thing: is I don't like paying outrageous rents that are in Key West. I'd rather buy a boat and live on the water.
Now, you said you'd passed out that day drinking these fireballs, right?
Yes, sir.
What time in that, like what time, take us through that day, the timeline for that day. When were you drinking these fireballs?
I know. Look, it's like I said, I don't really remember the day that well. I remember drinking during the day. I do remember that. I don't even remember all who was there. I know there were other people that came in and out. I know I passed out somewhere along the lines. You know, but that, I mean, asking me specifics, especially 6 years later, I couldn't tell you.
So you started drinking these Red Balls, was the sun still up?
That would be Fireball, sir. And
Fireballs.
Yes, the sun was still up, you know, while I was drinking. That is true.
All right. Do you remember getting out of bed and go right to the partying phase, or did you do something else before it started that day?
I already testified to that. I told you that.
Okay, well, I'm asking again.
Okay.
I appreciate you reminding me.
I'm just saying, I woke up at some point in the time, and I went and got cigarettes at the Tom Thumb. And I came back, and Travis was with me, and yes, Big Scott was there. I told you what happened after that.
But I'm talking about earlier in the day, when you got out of bed that day, did you go do something, or did you just start drinking?
No, actually, I mean, I'm pretty sure, because if I'm drinking during the day, I had a day off. So, you know, if I'm drinking during the day, I had a day off. So, yeah, I would imagine I had the day off.
And do you remember passing out that day?
Yeah, remember passing out? I don't know if that's a proper term, but no,
Okay.
I don't remember passing out.
Don't remember passing out?
I remember I passed out somewhere along the lines, but yeah, I don't. I guess I'm being too literal here, but I remember, yes, I went to sleep sometime during the day and night. I don't know.
And do you remember what time you woke up?
No.
Day or night?
Night.
Police cars already out and about?
Police and cars were already up there on Laurel Avenue. I could see, I could see the lights from the Tom Thumb parking lot. I could see all the lights that were up on Laurel Avenue.
Do you know how many times Mr. Bonnett was stabbed?
At this point, yes.
So now, I guess your story is that this is all being pinned on you, right? That you didn't do
Well,
this.
You would know better than anybody, Mr. Mansfield.
Oh, would I? But I
Yes.
wasn't there, you were. So why don't you tell me? Are you telling me this was all pinned on you?
I hate to tell you, again, Mr. Mansfield.
It's very simple,
You
Mr.
just
Tucker.
said
Is
that
your
I was
story
there and you have
today?
no proof of
Is your
that.
story
Sir.
today that you were?
Sir.
This is all being made up and that you didn't do this?
Yes, this is it. That is my story all day,
Okay.
and I've said it since day one.
So this is just the big Bubba system going after you to pin this on you.
Yeah, and Mr. Mansfield. Again, I can answer that. Would you like me to answer it? Would you like me to tell you how I know that? You said you didn't want to go into that.
Well, you know what? Let's not go into that because I'm pretty sure what your opinion is has no factual basis to it.
Really?
So, in other words, this is your theory that this is all being pinned on you by the big Bubba system.
Your Honor, I would object unless he wants to let me go into the things he doesn't want to go into.
I'll sustain that last question as argumentative.
I have nothing else, Judge.
All right.
Thank you.
So, now
Can I read your-
may conduct redirect in the same fashion, but just remember it's within the scope of the cross. We're not, all right?
Okay, thank you. I don't even know if I want to read it. I don't know.
Well,
what I
you
want
don't
read.
have to.
I'm just trying, let me think about what Mr. Mansfield just asked me,
All right,
because
take a
I was
moment.
kind of getting blasted there.
If you need a moment, take a moment.
Thank you.
It's
And-
not mandatory redirect,
No.
it's just if you want the opportunity.
Right, again, again, I think I would like to address that last thing there, but I mean, yes, I do know that I'm being set up yes, I'm being set up for this because I'm here. That's an obvious thing. I won't go into what, again, the things we're not supposed to be talking about right now, I guess. But, I do, let's see, as far as, everything else, I mean, everything else you just asked me, I'd already talked about, so I don't think there's anything else I need to say.
All right,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. You can step down. Should be a good time for an afternoon break, folks. How about, till, I'm just looking at the clock, 1:55, no, 2:55. 2:55, same procedures and protocols. If anybody wants to go outside the jury room, let the bailiff know. All right, so the jurors have left, and you've testified now, and already made my previous ruling, so that completes the defense case. I don't know if you're gonna make a motion, renewed motion now or after the rebuttal, which,
You talking about a renewed motion for acquittal?
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, I would like to do that. I'd like to do that after the rebuttal, I guess.
All right.
What time is it, Your Honor?
It's, what, 2:38, basically.
Okay,
So-
so I don't know how long they plan on doing their.
Well, I mean, I don't know how long this video and the deposition excerpts shouldn't take very long. I don't know how long the video is.
I think maybe 10 minutes, Judge.
Okay, so that's, their
And we did
rebuttal isn't gonna take that long.
And we did agree we're gonna play the full first video, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool.
All right, well, let's all take a break, and then we'll have the jury, then we'll have the rebuttal, then we'll excuse them, then we'll have the argument for the motion, and I assume that the state's got a proposed set of jury instructions,
We do, Judge.
and I presume you've shared them with the defendant, or will?
I'll give him his copy right now, Judge. Prepared the jury instructions and the verdict forms.
Okay.
Did you mail those to me, or?
I
No,
guess,
I'm gonna give you hard copies.
Okay, that's fine.
and we'll talk about, all right, we'll be back. It's 2:55. be seated. Okay, so you're all back. So I guess the state has a brief rebuttal case, and so let's bring the jury in, please. Thank you. Please be seated, members of the jury. Welcome back to court. This case is completed at this point. The state is going to be given an opportunity to present a case in rebuttal.
Yes, sir. State, well, thank you, Judge. The state's going to call Officer Danielle Malone.
Yes. Please come forward through the gate, approach the deputy in front of the witness stand. That's good right there. Turn and face the clerk, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Please have a seat on the witness stand.
May I proceed, Judge? Yes. Thank you, sir. Ms. Malone, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're no longer an officer, right? So it's just Ms. Malone?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Malone, I called you back to the stand on our rebuttal case. I want to ask you a few questions. Now, the night of November 17th of 2017, how were you employed at that time?
I was a detective with the Major Crimes Unit.
And were you dispatched to the hospital to conduct an investigation?
Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose in having you go to the hospital that night?
Was to meet with the victim, Paula Belmonte,
The victim of what?
of the robbery, murder.
And was this the same night that it had happened?
Yes, sir.
And what hospital did you report to?
Lower Keys Medical Center.
You remember about what time you went there that night?
It's probably around 10-ish
I mean,
at night.
Clearly nighttime, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to make contact with Miss Belmont?
Yes, sir.
And were you able to ask her questions about what had just happened?
Yes, sir.
Judge, at this time, the state's going to...
Okay. So you're not moving into evidence?
No, sir. Can we come sidebar?
Yeah. Well,
Miss Malone, now, when you went to the hospital that night, I'm sorry. When you went to the hospital that night, did you have your body-worn camera on?
Yes, sir.
All right, and did it produce a video of your conversation with Miss Belmont?
Yes, sir.
And did you have a chance to watch this video prior to coming to court today?
Yes, sir.
Does this video accurately and fairly depict that conversation?
From what it seems like, yes.
Did it appear to be altered or tampered with in any way?
No, sir.
Judge, at this time, I would seek to move in our video here.
which has been marked for identification as,
Is it marked?
I don't know if it's been marked.
proceed to move in what's been marked as uniform into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, I just would like to get a little closer look.
You would, yes, you may do so. Okay. You for identifications admitted into evidence as the state's next in order number 19. It's going to be published. The defendant's going to position himself as he has done previously to be able to get a good vantage point as to it. And we want to be sure that, as always, you can see it and hear it.
Thank you, Judge. May I go ahead and publish?
Go ahead.
Describe the other person.
I didn't really get a chance to get first.
Wait a minute, stop.
The other person was
Stop
smaller.
it. This is
Slow, little, like her. But he had something real.
Okay.
The smaller guy?
Yeah, something didn't look like a knife, but it was big, like something long and big.
So this is not the portion or the one that you...
This is just a small segment of the overall video which we're going to.
Give us a moment here. Some technical difficulties.
I can't wash my hands because.
That looks like the right.
Hi. Huh? Your friend Todd? He was at the house? Never know.
I know they kept going, nothing but this, that,
I don't know. I'm here to talk to you, okay? I'm Danielle, okay? I need you to tell me about the person who did this, or the persons that did this.
Okay, I don't know the one. The one that I do know, the one that was on top of me, he was 70. He was living in Detroit. Big black guy.
When you say big, what do you mean by big?
Big, like you, big. They told him that he was big.
Okay, stocky, muscular, fat,
Stocky, big.
stocky, and taller than I am?
Yeah, he had.
How much taller?
A little bit, but it was like, so, yeah, about, yeah.
Okay, so about 6 foot.
He had been at the house earlier, and then we had a very playing test or something like that. I don't know, because I was so serious. He's a friend of Anthony Black.
Okay.
And if they, I kept saying she's gonna have somebody come and beat me up, get me up, steal my money. I don't know, but she kept saying this. She tried to have Kristen Dinklocker do it. She asked Melissa Davis to do it. Matt put about 15-day notice on her door yesterday.
Okay.
But it was one that brought him to the house originally. And last year, I say the same thing. She knows, all they know is his nickname was Detroit.
All right, his nickname's Detroit.
He's some kind of warehouse.
Okay.
Warehouse somewhere on Front Street, underneath.
On Front Street? Okay, is he black, white?
Black.
How old is he?
In my age group, I'm 53, somewhere in that area.
In his 40s or 50s?
He's something like that.
In his 50s?
Yeah.
Okay. Any scars, marks, tattoos?
I don't know that well. He's April's friend, not mine.
Okay, but you've seen him. Did you, any scars or tattoos?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. What kind of clothes was he wearing?
Black shoes. Hot shoes, very good ones, very yellow shoes. And a dark shirt and dark sweatshirt, dark. Like this in the dark.
Okay.
So he had some kind of mask up, and I knew it wasn't maybe because of that.
Okay.
I don't see well in the dark, but it was not to me. I think it was just him. I couldn't tell the person was even masked because I was in the dark, and I didn't tell who it was. It was him.
Okay. Well, describe the other person.
And he when I get a chance to get the person, he was on top of me. The other person was smaller, little, big, and smaller, little like her. He had something
The smaller guy?
So if this look like that, big, like something long, big, maybe, if I have that, or something, I don't know, it's about this long.
It was he, white, black, Hispanic, male or female,
But, and he was all dark on me too.
and it was a male?
Yes.
Okay, so a smaller, black male. About how old was he?
I don't know. But I had to go to Detroit and then downstairs in Matt's house, and I see his fingerprints out of the window.
Okay.
Just he hung out there and with that.
Okay, the other person, how old was he?
I don't know. I don't know. He was completely drunk. Like I had a 200-pound man on top of me, and I was just catching glimpses.
Okay.
Roger is the one that you want to ask about now. Roger, that he doesn't believe somewhere. Roger Rugged. That's the one that
Roger Luggett?
Rugged.
Rugged?
Rugged. R-U-G-G-I-T-T. He's the one that got beat up by the other guy.
Ms. Malone, she said I had a 200-pound man on top of me, and I was catching glimpses. Who was she referring to when she said glimpses?
The second person.
She was only catching glimpses of the second person.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he lives in the city? Roger lives in the city?
He works as he was golf course. And at this time, he's probably staying there. He's a maker. He's the Lord of God.
Okay.
I know y'all talk to me every time you sit there, and I'm really like,
How old's Roger?
it's like 65. I sleep Chris tonight. Yeah.
Do you know where Roger would have gone and why he wanted to stay?
Well, he was scared to death. Maybe most of his work. The other person, the other guy there was about Washington, he ran away. They're all downstairs, next to the upstairs.
Roosevelt?
Everything that's over hangs out with that, drink beer, plays test and stuff.
Is Roosevelt white, black, or Hispanic? And he said his name's Roosevelt Washington. Where's he live at? Okay. No, ma'am. I honestly, I don't know. So, where were you when this all started?
Upstairs when I stayed upstairs.
Okay, where was Matt?
Sue downstairs.
Okay.
I can't see him on this house now. He's upstairs and that he can't do it.
Okay.
Upstairs that he can do it. Well, can I just get one of the ladies and send us details of the stitches?
So explain to me exactly what happened, okay?
I keep running up the stairs, I keep hearing something coming up, I turn around and I go over to the phone. Started being on the same, ready first, ready first, ready first.
talking about?
Rory Wilson.
Did that affect her ability to see the other person?
Yeah, she said she could only catch glimpses.
Anything else in there? What about in your backpack?
My wallet, everything was going on. I ate it and I was supposed to fly home for Christmas. Had some jewelry in my backpack, some change. The keys, somebody found the keys down the road there. You probably told me about the keys.
Where down the road? Which way down the road?
I didn't ask them.
Who found your keys?
I was with my old boyfriend and I called and asked him if he ever know me. When the people took off in the car, I heard a car start. Heard a car start.
You, then where, does Detroit have a car? Okay, so you heard a car start. What did the car sound like?
It was somewhere in the car. It just sounded like a car. It wasn't overly loud or anything. It just started the car start. That was all. It might not even been nurse. It might have been somebody coming from CVS. In my mind, it was they went down the steps and then I heard a car. I don't know.
I'm gonna give you a break, okay? They're gonna clean you up and I'm gonna be back, okay?
The back, once I go, and I don't.
Listen,
Okay, I'm gonna.
listen. I know you're upset. But you want us to catch the person who did this to your friend, right? I understand that, and you've been very helpful, okay? Just while they're cleaning you up, just, and see if you can just think of anything, okay? Okay. We're gonna do all of that, but okay, and you think it's on Front
I
Street?
think it's Front Street, but is there anywhere else on Front Street?
Honestly, I haven't worked on South Island in a very long time, so I don't know, okay? Can you describe it tonight?
It's to me, I think it's only about that long.
Okay.
It was short.
Okay.
Okay, is that pretty much the totality of your discussion with her about her ability to identify the second attacker?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Judge, now the state is going to, Ms. Malone, I have nothing further for you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, cross-examination.
Can I move it a little bit this way, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Malone, we had a little question and answer before, but I'm going to just ask you a few questions about this video. You said Paula looked upset in that video, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is directly after the crime, right?
Yes, sir.
So she's down in the ER, correct?
Yes, sir.
You know if they gave her any medications?
I wouldn't know that, sir.
Okay, so you don't know if she's lucid at this point,
Appeared lucid to me.
okay? Now, you say she appeared lucid. How many times did she say the name Anethea Clay in that video?
I didn't count.
Okay. Did you testify previously that Anthea Clay was never raised to the level of a suspect?
Correct.
Okay. Did you go and interview Miss Anthea Clay after this?
I did not, no, sir.
Okay. Did anybody?
I believe they did. I don't know who, though.
Okay. Do you remember, again, the first interview video that was done with Anthea Clay?
I wasn't there.
Okay. I think you testified previously that it was how long afterwards?
I believe they met with her that night.
No, the video, the interview video. You
The-
said, if I remember correctly, you testified that it was almost 2 years later.
That they conducted a full interview? Yes.
Okay. Was she arrested?
No,
Okay. Why not?
because she never rose to the level of a murder suspect.
Again, Ms. Malone. Paula, what did she say in that video? Did she say over and over again, this was Anthea Clay? She set this up.
I believe she said that once, and then she stated over repeatedly to talk to Anthea Clay because she knew Detroit.
Actually brought Detroit to the Treehouse, correct?
I don't recall them exact words.
We can play it again if we need to.
I just don't recall them exact words.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind, Your Honor, can I go up and, hit the video for a second? There's a couple things I'd like to clarify.
Okay?
Thank you.
Judge, objection, that's not what she said. She
Yeah,
said she
I will
didn't.
just, wait, okay, I will just sustain the objection as to,
How many times do you think she said it?
Objection asked and answered.
no, I'll overrule that objection.
How many times she said the name Anthea Clay?
No, the Anthea Clay did this. Anthea Clay set this up, something to that effect.
I recall one time.
Now, I want you to listen to this part, if you wouldn't mind. What did she just say there?
She asked me if her friend was dead.
She said her friend's dead, right? Agree? Her friend's dead, right? Now, if you listen to this, tell me what she says in a second.
Huh? Who called you? Your friend Todd? He was at the house? Okay.
What she just say there?
He's dead?
Did she just say, my friend Todd, he's at the house, he's dead? What would that make it sound like?
I don't understand.
When you watch that little video clip right there, did she just say, he's at the house, he's my friend, Todd is at the house, he's my friend, he's dead? Help me with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would that make it sound like she's saying that Todd is dead at the house?
I didn't believe that at the time, no.
I didn't say I didn't ask you if you believed it, but I said, would it make it sound like it?
Judge, I'm going to object. The video speaks for itself.
Well, I'll overrule the objection. Is that what you heard?
No, sir, that's not what I heard.
So let me replay it.
You can replay it, but that's not what I heard.
Let's check it again. Maybe I'm.
Huh? Who called you? Your friend Todd? He was at the house? Okay. Huh?
Get it? What she just said.
She said that her friend Todd called her and told her that her friend was dead.
Everyone's saying he's dead after she said that Todd was at the house, correct?
Yes, she said Todd was at the house and that he's dead and form of a question.
I don't know about the form of the question, I wouldn't say that exactly, but okay. Again, we can agree that this could be confusing, correct?
It was not confusing to me.
Asked and answered, we've covered it.
I'm asking if it was confusing to you, right?
Okay, I'll overrule the objection. What's the question?
Anyway, got to that part. Okay, and then pull Anthea Clay. Let's go to this.
You say big ones.
You do it. Jump ahead. Jump ahead. Let's not go too far.
Okay, Mr. Tucker, having a hard time hearing you, the court reporter, so let's...
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, Ms. Malone, at the time you were a homicide detective, correct?
Yes, sir.
Hi. Uh-huh. Who called you? Your friend Todd? He was at the house? Okay.
He's dead. Can I see him?
Never know, okay?
I know they jumped on him and nothing but his bed. Todd said they stabbed him too.
I don't know. I'm here to talk to you, okay?
And called him.
I'm Danielle, okay? I need you to tell me about the person who did this, or the persons that did this.
Okay, I told him the one that I do know, one was on top of the one that stabbed me. He was living in Detroit. Big black guy.
When you say big, what do you mean by big?
Big like you, big.
And who's Detroit?
Rory Wilson.
Thank you.
They told him that he was big.
Okay, stocky, muscular, fat,
Stocky, big.
stocky, and taller than I am?
Yeah, he had
How
been-
much taller? All right.
Maybe not as much tall. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so about 6 foot?
He had been in the house earlier and he had been downstairs playing chess or something. That I don't know because I was upstairs. He's excited as he play.
Okay.
And if they, I kept saying he was going to have somebody come and beat me up, steal my money.
Sorry about that.
That Jewish beard,
Having a little trouble here.
and then he was gay.
Okay.
Okay, stop.
What did she just say there?
She said Anthea Clay, and that Anthea Clay was trying to get somebody to beat her up.
And steal her money.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And how many times did she say Anthea Clay right there?
The name, I believe, 3 times.
Okay, 3 times.
He's muscular, fat,
Stocky, big.
stocky, and taller than I am?
Yeah, he had
How
been-
much taller? All right.
Maybe not as much tall. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so about 6 foot?
He had been in the house earlier and he had been downstairs playing chess or something. That I don't know because I was upstairs. He's excited as he play.
Okay.
Yeah, they, I kept saying she was going to have somebody come and beat me up, steal my money. She kept saying that she tried to have Crystal Dinklager do it. She
What did she just say there?
She tried to have Crystal Dinklocker do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Did she just say somebody else? She tried to have somebody else do it?
I believe so. I believe Melissa something.
Matt with the TV.
Gentlemen, can we come sidebar?
Yes?
Just said?
April's the one that brought him to the house originally,
Okay.
and April's Anthea Clay. That's her street name.
Thank you for that.
People ask you to say your statements. She knows, all they know is the name's Detroit.
His nickname's Detroit.
It's
He's,
some kind of warehouse.
So she just said she knows him, right? She knows Roy Wilson. Detroit.
Yes, she knows Detroit.
Okay.
okay,
Warehouse somewhere close to the street, I believe.
on Front Street, okay, is he black, white?
Like,
How old is he?
and my age from, I'm 53, somewhere in that area.
In his 40s or 50s?
He's somewhere in that.
In his 50s? Okay. Any scars, marks,
I
tattoos?
don't know. I don't know at all. He's April's friend.
The April Clay again? She just said
That he's April's friend?
April's friend, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, but you've seen him, did you, any scars or tattoos?
Nothing I'm aware of, no.
Okay. What kind of clothes was he wearing?
Black boots, you know, like top shoes and wearing them on three yellow shorts, and dark shorts and dark sweatshirt, dark, like that, so like this in the dark.
Okay.
So he's had some kind of mask up, but I knew it wasn't, it wasn't when he came up there.
Okay.
Well, I didn't see well in the dark, but before he got to me, I thought he just, you know, I don't know, because I couldn't tell the person was even masked, because I was in the dark, but I know exactly who it was, it was him.
Okay. Well, we'll describe the other person.
Thank you.
I didn't really get a chance to see that person, he was on top of me. The other person was smaller, littler, maybe, okay, smaller, littler, like her. He had something real big in his hand.
The smaller guy?
Yeah, something, it didn't look like a knife, but it was big, like something long and big, maybe.
Now, she testified, I'm sorry. Did she just say that the smaller guy had something big in his hands?
Yes.
And again, we just heard how many times with April, and I lost count. How many times? April and Anthea Clay?
I didn't exactly keep count, but about 5 times she said her name.
Multiple times, right?
Yes.
She knows him, friend, brought him to the treehouse. She set this up. I'm asking. Is that what she said in there?
About Anthea Clay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Again, Ms. Malone, and you say, again, did anybody go and talk to Anthea Clay?
Objection asked and answered.
I'm going to sustain that
Okay.
objection. That's
Okay. Was Anthea Clay ever brought down to the station that night?
Objection asked and answered.
I haven't.
I'll
think I've asked that.
overrule that objection. You can answer the question, ma'am.
To headquarters? Not
Yes.
to my knowledge.
Okay. And again, she says that Anthea Clay is a friend of Roy Wilson. Did you know where Roy Wilson was that night?
At that time,
At that time,
I did not know.
you didn't know. Okay. And again, did you know where Anthea Clay was that night?
Me personally, no, I did not.
Again, did anybody else?
Somebody talked to her that night, yes.
Somebody talked to her that night. Okay. And but she wasn't brought down to the station, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And again, how many times does she mention the name Detroit in this video?
I didn't count, but it was quite a few.
Quite a few, right? Would you say it was more? That she said April Anthea Clay more, or that she said Detroit more?
Probably about equal.
About equal. But Roy Wilson is a suspect at this point, right?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I would ask, with your experiences, that you were experienced homicide detective at this point, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm asking, okay, you testified earlier, based on your experience and training, that, your knowledge of homicide, being a homicide detective, correct?
I believe I stated my training and knowledge of the case.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, how long were you a homicide detective for the MCSO?
Judge, objection beyond the scope of my direct correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
sustain that
Okay.
objection.
I'll go back. Ms. Malone, again, so Rory Wilson becomes a suspect. Why didn't you not want to ask Anthea Clay? Why didn't she become a suspect at this point?
Objection, Judge, asked and answered.
We'll do it one more time. You can answer the question, ma'am.
Rory Wilson was a suspect because Paula identified Rory Wilson as the man that was beating her and held a knife to her throat.
Okay.
That wasn't the question.
I literally, again, you know, he became a suspect because she said, I'm just clarifying here, she said that he beat her and put a knife to her throat, right?
Yes, sir.
Got it right, okay, and did she just say that Anthea Clay did this? She'd been trying to set her up and have her beat up and have her money stolen from her.
Objection, asked and answered already.
I'll overrule the objection. Didn't she basically say that? You can answer the question.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so why would Anthea Clay not rise to the level of a suspect?
Just because she was a person of interest and possibly setting this up, nobody else put her in the crime.
Okay. Did anybody else put her in the crime later?
A CI eventually did, yes.
Okay. And do you know when that was?
I'm not certain on the date.
Okay. Anyway, was Miss Anthea Clay ever arrested for this crime?
No.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, you said Miss Anthea Clay is deceased at this point, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what killed her? Well, I shouldn't say. I should rephrase that anyway, because again, do you know how she died?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Is there any redirect examination?
Ms. Malone, to your knowledge, during this investigation, was there ever enough evidence obtained with which to charge Anthea Clay with being involved in this crime?
No, there was not.
During this investigation, was there enough evidence obtained to charge with the crime?
Yes, there was.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right. So you may step down, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, sir. The state at this point is going to seek to read out to the jury certain portions of a deposition by Paula Belmont given on May 1st of 2019. She was sworn in at that time, swore to tell the truth, and her statements were made under oath to be truthful, and the state has certain portions of that deposition that we feel are relevant for rebuttal.
Just for the jury's understanding, you saw this person's deposition to perpetuate yesterday. Right? That was video and audio tape. This is a separate deposition, but again, it was under oath. There were questions, there was a court reporter, and there was a transcript made. It was under oath. So now counsel's being given an opportunity to read certain portions of that deposition for rebuttal purposes.
Thank you, Judge. And again, for the record, this deposition was May of 2019. Questions being proffered to Paula Belmont, May of 2019. Yeah, in dark clothing, I don't remember. It's been a year and a half at least. Question, I understand, but you immediately recognized him when he approached you. Answer, oh yeah. Question, is he the one that stabbed you? Is that right? I won't say stabbed, he cut my neck. Question, he sliced your throat? Yes, my neck. Question, and you're sure it was Rory Wilson? Answer, absolutely, without a doubt. Who else did you see there that night? No one that I can identify. Do you know Ty Tucker? I know him, yes. And you did not see Ty? Not that I can identify. I saw another person, but I can't identify him. Question, can you describe the other person that you saw? Answer, no, because I had Rory Wilson on top of me, pounding the hell out of me. Question, did Rory ever go down the stairs? Answer, they both. The first person went down the stairs and then Rory went right behind him, attacking Matt. The first person was getting Matt from one end, the second person was getting Matt from the other end. Question, and you saw two people, Rory and the other person attacking Matt from behind? Answer, yes, one was in front and one was in the back. Question, and you said initially that you believed that the second person had a billy club. Answer, I think it was Rory. I think it was Rory. Question, you think Rory stabbed Matthew Bonnett? I didn't say that. You just said billy club. That had nothing to do with Rory stabbing Matt Bonnett. Then the question, let me go back. I want to make sure I completely understand your answer. Who had the billy club? Ms. Belmont's answer, I believe it was Rory. Rory had the billy club. Question, did you see any other weapons? Answer, no, I can't. I don't remember. I know at one point a small knife fell. I know at one point that other stick fell, and I believe that is when Roger got it. But you are talking a year and a half ago, and they are memories that I try and hide, so I can't answer that honestly. Question, did you see the second person with any weapons? Answer, I didn't know. I couldn't see the second person until they were going down the steps because I had Rory Wilson on top of me beating the shit out of me. But you said you saw Rory and the second person attacking Matthew Bonnett. Yes.
Mr. Mansfield, I think it would probably be good for the record if we just identified page and lines.
Okay, Judge, that's fine.
So like you started with, you
Yes.
go ahead and.
That's fine, Judge. Let me just back up then. So what the state has referred to in the deposition is page 13 and page 14 so
Page
far.
13, lines 1 through 25.
Correct. And page 14, lines 1 through 25.
All right. Now, what's next?
The next one we're going to go to is page 16, line 13. David, can you give me some water? I'm sorry, Judge. Page 16, line 13. Do you remember what the second person was wearing? Answer. I couldn't see the second person hardly at all, except he was a littler person. Dark clothing, and it was the second person that said, thank you, David. Dark clothing, and it was the second person that said, I think we killed him. Question. So you heard this second person speak? Yes. I think we killed him is what I heard him say. Now, Judge, I'm going to move to page 18, line 1. Who told you that Ty had something to do with it? Answer, nobody told me. Question, the police didn't tell you that? Answer, no. Well, afterwards, when they arrested him, yes. Okay. Ms. Belmont continues, not when I was having lunch with him at McDonald's, or I would have been nowhere near him. Question, are you sure that he was involved? Answer, what kind of question is that? I had told you I can't identify him. That person was wearing a mask. So I wasn't the one who identified him. So the question, so the only reason you believe he was involved is because other people have told you that he was, because the police, and she says, answer, because the police arrested him. Okay, are you aware of whether or not any of his physical evidence was found at the scene? Answer, I don't know anything about that. All I know is the police arrested him. Then she goes on to say, actually, he himself told me that when we were at McDonald's, he himself told me, oh, the police had found a knife with blood on it. Because I said to him, oh, good, it would be my blood. And he said, no, it's Matt's. Whether that was, this is Paula still speaking, whether that was true or not, I don't know. But he himself told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's, that the knife that the police found had Matt's blood?
That's through line 25 on page 18.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The next page I'm referring to is page 19, line 1. And it picks up from where the previous page left off. So he himself told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's, that the knife that the police found had Matt's blood on it. That's what he said. And the question, and you hugged him at McDonald's? Her answer, yes. I was upset, crying because of what Roy did, not knowing, like I said, not knowing that Ty Tucker had anything to do with it, because I can't identify him as being there one way or the other. That was Paulo's response. I can't identify him as being there one way or the other. That line 7 on page 19. The next section that I'll be referring to is page 38, Judge, line 2. Paula's answer to a previous question. There was a scuffle between them, and Roger got thrown into a tarp. I don't believe I said he was beating him. I was the one getting beat, but there was a scuffle between those two, the other person and Roger. And the question, and you saw the second person holding a knife to Roger's throat? Answer, no, ma'am. You did not see that? No, ma'am. You were told that? I was told that by Roger. That is why Roger wasn't helping me. And Roger was the one who told you that the other man had a knife to his throat? Yes, ma'am. But you never saw that? No, ma'am. I couldn't see past Rory Wilson because he was on top of me, beating me for the third time, I have told you.
That's through line 25 on
Yes,
that
sir.
page 38.
Next page, page 54, line 14. The second person this is the question. The second person that you can't identify, do you know whether or not that person was white or black? Answer, I couldn't tell you. Question, okay, only that the person was smaller than Rory Wilson? Answer, yes. And you believe it was a male? Answer, it was a male. And you heard his voice? Answer, yes. Question, but the voice did not sound familiar to you. No, but it wasn't Rory Wilson's voice.
That was through line 25 on page 54.
Page 57, line 18. I may have asked you this. The second person that you can't identify that was there, do you remember what that person was wearing? Answer, dark clothing and a mask. Answer, yes. I'm sorry, dark clothing and a mask. Question, did Rory Wilson have on a mask? Answer, yes. Were the masks the same? I don't know. I didn't get to see the second person. That was line 25, page 57. Moving to page 58, line 1. But you said he was wearing a mask. Answer, yeah. Question, did you see the person? Answer, from the back when he was leaving, his darkness. What kind of mask was it? I don't know. It was dark. The mask was dark, like a hoodie mask, the back of it. I can't tell you anything about it other than that. Those are the statements, Judge, from the deposition given on May of 19 that the state published for purposes of rebuttal.
Anything further by way of rebuttal?
No, sir.
Okay, members of the jury, we've reached one of those points in time where I have to conduct a little bit of business outside of your hearing. If you wouldn't mind going in the jury room for a few minutes, I'd appreciate it. All right, they're gone. So, just want to get an idea of how the rest of the day is going to unfold here. It's 3:50, so has Mr. Tucker received a copy of proposed jury instructions?
I have, Your Honor. I
Verdict?
haven't had a chance to peruse it yet.
I have a packet for the court as well, if you would like it now.
It's all right.
Like it now?
I'll get it, but it doesn't have to be right at the moment.
Just let me know.
I'm just trying to gauge whether we're going to be able to do the charge conference this afternoon, which is what I proposed, and ascertain whether Mr. Tucker is ready to address that.
Well, Your Honor, I thought first that we were going to do a renewed motion to.
Well, we are.
Okay.
We are, but, you know, none of it involves the jury, so I thought I would kind of figure out what time to tell them to be here tomorrow, and hopefully be more accurate than I have in the past day or so. So what that I have to calculate is, you know, how long it's going to take to do a charge conference. If it's going to be contested to any great extent, it's going to take longer than if it's fairly agreed to, fairly well agreed to. So
I would like a chance to go ahead and
I'm sorry, could you speak up,
I'm
please?
sorry. Let me do this.
You would like to have a chance?
Yeah, no, I'd like to have a chance to go ahead and review that so I can, get with my advisors and try and figure out what I want to do with that.
So that means to me that you do not want to go to a charge conference.
Not this afternoon, if it's all possible, Your Honor. I would imagine if we could go to it tomorrow, that would be great.
All right. May I see now the proposals, please?
Commissioner Butcher.
Yes. It's a pretty thick packet,
That's what I felt.
but that doesn't mean it's complicated. But it is a thick packet.
Yeah, just so the court's aware, I know that some judges, every time they read some type of homicide or some type of manslaughter charge, they like to read the introduction to homicide. I don't know how the court would do it. I'll leave that to the court's discretion in this matter. But I did include it various times in there, every time we address either manslaughter or second-degree murder or felony murder rules. So that might make the packet a little lighter.
So, again,
Your Honor, I'm definitely going to need time with this just because, okay, I'm looking at it, and yes, I understand you're trying to explain the concepts of some of these things, but my name is used in it over and over and over again in association with crimes I'm not even charged with.
well, it's the norm that the defendant's name appears in jury instructions repeatedly. There's nothing extraordinary about that, but I will give you the overnight to
Thank you.
review it and prepare.
Thank you.
I prefer not to, but I recognize that it's relatively late in the day, and it's in a somewhat complicated.
It looks pretty extensive too, Your Honor.
Well, but most of these are standard jury instructions, but there are, there's various questions, like lesser includeds. I don't know if you're requesting any lesser includeds, and if the state is, so that's an issue. A lot of this stuff is pretty standard. Now, I'm looking at the robbery instruction. It looks like it's almost in a different format than some of the others. I don't know why we've got all these italicized portions in that, but that's stuff we can work through. The challenge is, in my experience, you go through a charge conference and almost inevitably there's changes that have to be made. It's just almost, unless you have an agreed set of instructions, then there's changes that have to be made. So then I'm just curious, and we don't have to answer this question now, but just food for thought here. Okay, and you do have some interrogatory verdict form for with the weapon and the like, so you did address that point. All right, so we're going to do the charge conference tomorrow, but then we're going to go into closings. And I don't like to, have the jurors start deliberating too late in the day. So that means I'd like to, have a focused charge conference. So we can deal with the motion for judgment acquittal this afternoon. So, and presumably, if there's changes, the state has the capability of getting those made fairly expeditiously.
Yeah, sure.
And then in terms of, again, I'm just thinking out loud here, trying to plan closing arguments, I'm not going to hold you to it today. I just want to get an idea so I know what to tell the jurors is how much time would you be thinking, both of
So I'm guessing like maybe an hour, hour and a half?
That's a pretty broad range. What was your thought, Mr. Tucker?
I was thinking around an hour, Your Honor.
All right, well, yeah, hour and a half, that's certainly an hour, an hour and a half, but it's been a long trial, there's a lot of evidence, we can hone it down, but so that tells me, if I tell the jurors to come at 10, that means we have to be here at 9 and ready for business, which I would think an hour for a charge conference should be adequate. So, I'll tell them to be here at 10 o'clock and, do your homework tonight. Again, you can review them with whoever you'd like to. I would imagine a lot of these are fairly standard, right out of Florida standard jury instructions, but there could be always questions. So, anyway, I'm going to tell them 10 a.m. Please ask them to join us. Thank you. Please be seated. Everybody, welcome back, members of the jury. Again, we all appreciate your flexibility, your patience, your attention, participation. We're going to call it a day for the jurors. We're going to remain here, but there's nothing more for you to do this afternoon. The evidentiary portion of the trial is completed, and tomorrow I would anticipate going into closing arguments and final instructions and deliberations. So we'll probably need to do, myself and lawyers, defendant, some work tomorrow morning. So if you be here at 10 o'clock, that would be great. Continuing to follow the cautionary instructions, and have a good evening, and 10 o'clock tomorrow. So the jurors are gone, so before we have the argument, did you need a few minutes, or are you ready to?
No, I think I could use a few minutes, Your Honor, just a few.
Excuse me?
I could use a few minutes, Your Honor.
Okay. But before we take a break, Ms. Knowles, to her credit, is very meticulous and careful when it comes to the exhibits, and she's concerned, as am I, as to exactly, are there other videos on this last, I don't know if that was the last exhibit for the state, I think it was, the video, are there other, what's the number?
20. Should be 20.
I mean,
I think there are 2 other videos on it, Judge, so we're gonna have to transfer that to a single thumb drive in order for it to go in.
well, that
Can
would
we
be,
just delete the other? Actually, somebody much smarter about these things is sitting right here, and she said she can delete the other files and just leave the video that we played for the jury on that thumb drive.
That's fine, Your Honor, as long as it's just that one video.
right, that's what we don't want is, otherwise, the only other option we would have, which is not a great option, is to not have it go back into the jury room, and then if they want to see it, tell them they got to come out here while somebody controls it, whereas if someone who is knowledgeable about these things is able to delete the portions that weren't published, and then the defense can view it, or whatever assurance is necessary, if there is any needed, that it's just what was played, no more, no less. That would solve that concern.
Okay.
So, all right, so what, if 4:20, 4:15, what do you want?
4:15 would be fine with me.
All right. Okay. Okay.
All right, guys, welcome to Justice is a Process. We're back here today with another show here. Today, the topic again is Tyrone Tucker, and we're going to be going over more information, more things that point to Tyrone Tucker's innocence. And as I've been looking into this case, getting into the videos, I want to share some things with you. We're going to get into video that I think is pertinent based on the testimony that we heard last week. And we're going to get into also listening to some of what I believe will be presented in court this coming week. I believe it'll be from this deposition that was captured back in 2020. And we're going to go over just some clips, not the entirety of any of these items, but pertinent clips that I think add to understanding this case and understanding the injustice that is happening before our eyes down here in Florida. And the injustice that we're seeing is the fact this trial is happening at all, because we have an innocent man, a man that the state knows is aware. If you see the pleadings, and again, we're not going to have documents today, but I'm going to have another show where we're going to go over some documents, and we're going to go over the fact that the things you're seeing, the state is aware of, the prosecutors are aware of, and they're choosing to proceed with this case, and they're choosing to attempt to put a man they know is innocent behind bars for the rest of his life, and that is disturbing and absolutely concerning. So, anyways, without further ado, we're going to get into some videos here. So, where we're going to start with, this is a witness that I expect that we will see next week. And we've already watched some of his testimony, but it's Todd O'Quinn. And this is a very, very strong witness. I believe that if he testifies, if he's able to come to court and testify, that you're going to see that this gentleman offers some very, very strong evidence and in favor of Tyrone Tucker's innocence. And yes, I am aware, and I'm going to show you clips that shows, yes, he is a friend of Tyrone Tucker. He knows Tyrone Tucker. That's why it's so powerful. So the first clip I want to show you is going to deal with that specifically. And we're going to get into the relationship that they had, because that's what makes him such a strong witness. He knew who he was. He knows what he looks like. And he's been pretty consistent in the fact that it wasn't Tyrone. That's not who it was at the scene. But first clip we're going to pull up here. How does Todd O'Quinn know Tyrone Tucker? So let's listen from Todd O'Quinn at a deposition, or I believe it was a deposition, or it was a recorded statement back in 2019.
By Tucker.
Personally,
Okay. And how long have you known him?
a couple of years.
And where did you know him from?
Originally from the Marathon County Jail. We were 2 years ago. We were together up there on. He was in there on a sailboat issue or something, and I was in there for something else. We met there at Marathon Jail.
So you met at the Marathon in the county jail. Okay. And did you establish a friendship after that?
Absolutely.
And how often would you see him? Would you see Ty?
Daily.
Where?
All over. Stock Island, Key West, Cots. That's just in passing, but we if nothing else, we always met Sundays at Shrimp Daddy's to they have some free food there. Watch the game, watch NASCAR, or watch the game if it's football season. So that's kind of like, we interact every day, but we make it a point to go there on every Sunday.
Okay. And so.
So I know him more than just glancing at him. I know him. I mean, we're
You're friends.
we hang out pretty good.
Okay.
He's different than a lot of the
Why? What makes him different?
Well, I mean, just because that again that crowd is just we have the same thing. We both work, and a lot of people come down here. It's just you don't want to. It's just like with the Treehouse. You don't want to get with all the craziness all the time and all the drama and stuff. And I separate it all with Tyrone. He doesn't. He's not on the same level as he's actually more intelligent and stuff, and I can relate to him. Out of all these people, that's who I gravitated to. So.
Okay. And have you ever seen Ty be aggressive?
I've seen him hold back or not fight another guy just because of his discipline up in Marathon. A guy over a card game threatened him or something, and he never got mad or threw a punch or anything.
So you've never seen him be violent?
Never.
Okay. And you've never seen him act aggressively toward anyone?
Ever. He helps everybody. I've never even seen him. I don't even think I've seen him upset the whole time I've known him. Very laid back.
What do you mean he helps everybody? What do you mean by that?
Just he's that type. He's just that type of guy. He's always run around and gets along with everybody and help give everybody. That's the other point about the thing that just doesn't make sense, because he's actually my voice the reason down here too, because when I go off and want to do all the what I'm saying, he'll be like, but again, if I'm gonna go, he'll give me the money to go. It's crazy, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he doesn't want you to go, but I tried to. He didn't party with me. He didn't. It was just uncanny for him to even be there, to even be around. He wouldn't. I've asked him to go and he wouldn't go. So
go to the Treehouse?
You're right.
Okay.
He just doesn't like that environment.
All right. So significant points that you should take away from that. Obviously, Todd O'Quinn and him are friends. Todd O'Quinn knows what he looks like. Todd O'Quinn hangs out with him all the time, right? And he would have known that Tyrone Tucker was that other guy. Secondarily, he describes who Tyrone Tucker is. He's not the type that would even be around the Treehouse. That wasn't his scene. He's a calm, level-headed guy. He's the type of guy that if he was going to be hearing these things, he'd be saying, listen, guys, don't go do this. Whereas Rory and Travis, more the type of individuals that would say, hey, man, they want to go get high, they want to go get money, they head out. But Tyrone's not going to stop him. So he's sitting there playing dominoes, drinking some Fireball, whatever. He passes out, goes to sleep. He's on about his business for the evening. He's not going to intervene because he's going to say, all right, do what you do. But he's the type of individual that is certainly not going to get involved in something like that. And you're talking, this is Todd O'Quinn. This is a guy that was at the scene. If he would have seen Tyrone Tucker there, rest assured he would have been able to recognize him. So let's get into what Mr. O'Quinn actually sees at the scene. And we're going to start here now and get into that. Give me one moment. And all right, so this next clip is going to talk about Todd O'Quinn's opinion on who he thinks is responsible for this, and what he thinks the cause of all this was. And he's going to talk about an individual who the police knew about, have known about, hid from the public, and then she now ultimately has passed away and is unable to testify. But you're going to hear from a guy who was in the inner workings of that treehouse. He's going to tell you why he believes this individual that he names is in fact the one that was responsible for this. She's the one who set everything in motion. She had an issue with Paula. Paula is the lady that was on the stand on Friday, and she sets this in motion by letting Rory know or putting word on the street out about money and drugs being at the house, to which Rory finds out, to which Rory goes and recruits, which makes perfect sense. Rory doesn't need 2, 3, 4 people to go to Paula. He just said, hey, he needed Travis to drive the truck over. So they drive over, black truck, black clothes, jump out of the truck, run in, do this thing, jump in the truck, drive away. And that way it would be, and again, it makes sense he would use Travis, since Travis isn't a known person over there in that treehouse. So let's listen here.
That you not only heard Anathea Clay make threats, but that she said that she was going to get back at Paula somehow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think that the incident was related to Anathea Clay?
I do.
Okay. Why?
I think it really, at the end of the day, it just comes down to her and Paula just having to be just 2 women not getting along and wanting Matt. And she's just upset that she has to go.
Did you see Anathea Clay that night, the night of the incident?
I didn't see her that night.
No.
Okay. Which was kind of unusual. She was usually there every night.
So you thought it was unusual that she wasn't around.
And then something else take place, right? As soon as she disappears, she's not there. And that's the other thing too, because Paula works on a schedule that if you're not right there watching it, witnessing it, you would never know when do I go and how. When is, you want to make the best. Oh, if somebody with firsthand knowledge is what I'm saying that has. Paula was very open with it. That's the other thing about the things. She wasn't very open, kind of friendly, about it. It's not like a drug atmosphere.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Todd O'Quinn talking about why this thing happened, what was really going on here, and that is Anathea Clay had an issue with Paula, and he was saying he believed 100% that that's where this thing came from. And that she essentially set this thing up, let people know there were money and drugs in the house, and that this thing originated because of her. So we're going to move into now talking about his version of events, what he saw, and you're going to see there's pieces here that I'm going to show you from other witnesses that support what the generality of what he saw. And he's going to explain or take the time as he's talking here to explain, hey, he was nervous when you heard that first statement. We went over that first statement. I showed you guys that first statement. I showed you the next day. There were some problems. There were some things he left out. And he's going to get into all of that here as we move into this next statement. So give me one moment here. Let me get this up.
And what did you see?
I saw Matt with his back to the railing and another person facing him, and they were exchanging exchanging blows or fighting.
And what did you do?
I ran up to the top of the stairs and swung at the one that he was engaged with to help him.
And what did he look like?
He was in a mask,
A mask, a skull mask?
skull mask, everything completely covered.
Okay. And what color?
Black, like Halloween. Just black.
Black. All black from head to toe.
Head to toe.
Okay. And what happened after you swung at him?
He kind of went back, and when he turned to me, that's when I actually saw from the side view. There's nothing on the mask that they wore. There was nothing on the sides. The raised white features on the mask were just in the front. So when I first came up to see him, it was just nothing stood out. But when he turned at me, then I saw the mask, and then I saw what appeared to be a knife in his hand, and he lunged at me and took a.
And your pinky got cut.
Right, and then I turned and went, and that's when I ran off the property again, and stayed on the retaining wall.
And you tried to get help?
Right, yelling.
Okay. Yelling for the police?
Right.
All right. What did Matthew look like when you saw him struggling?
Just real defensive, and I just saw little red spots on
The front of his shirt?
On the front of his shirt.
Okay.
Motion from the defense.
Yes, renewed motion for judicial acquittal.
Any further argument, or you're going to rely on your?
I'm actually going to make a slightly further argument, just because there's been new evidence entered in, I guess. So I'm going to go over a little bit just so the prosecutors can see. Okay. Your Honor, if I remember correctly, it was a prima facie case is what we're looking at here.
No, actually, that was from the close of the state's case. It's actually the state has to meet a higher burden
Okay.
for when all the evidence is closed. So,
Well, I would submit that again, if there's a higher burden, I didn't think there was enough. I mean, there was definitely enough for a prima facie case. I would not have challenged your ruling there, sir. But if there's a higher standard, if you're talking about the jury having no doubt, or at least no reasonable doubt, I would submit that there's no way that the state has presented a case that comes close to anywhere close to beyond a reasonable doubt. I would say that because, okay, still we've got, okay, my testimony, we've got Ms. Belmont's testimony. Now, again, we've kind of discussed Ms. Belmont's testimony today, and yes, at different times there were different things she said because of different things. I mean, again, this one in the hospital, yes, she was definitely right out of the crime, I guess, and yeah, she was definitely upset. We don't know if she was on medication. We don't know if any of that stuff was because of that. Yes, Danielle Malone can testify to what she said, but she can't testify what her state of mind was. Same thing with, again, when we went through the deposition. Now that one, I happen to know her state of mind at the time, just because, again, of reviewing videos and everything else. But yes, there was reasons for that too, and I'll address those in my close if I have to. The thing is but the state, again, now I just went and testified too, and I don't remember anything in Mr. Mansfield's cross where he tied me into the crime or tied me to a piece of evidence or even impeached any of my testimony. So, I mean, I would imagine my testimony probably weighs as heavily as anybody else's. But, so with that said, I mean, okay, we go back to the first ones. There was no evidence presented against me from any of the other witnesses except for Travis Johnson. Now, Travis Johnson, again, not only did he change his story when he was on the stand within those 2 days, I remember a couple questions just offhand. I remember, when we asked him if he was, if he was not telling the truth about some of his statements, and we went through the whole vacillating thing. And the very next day, he comes in here and completely different answer. He actually says, yes, I wasn't telling the truth. Between the 2 days, again, I would imagine, I haven't had a chance to ask him, but I mean, it definitely seemed like he had had a discussion with the state about some of his answers. Now, even the vacillating, I had to look that up. I have been to college. I'm fairly well educated, and I had to look it up. I didn't know what vacillating even meant at that point. But yet, Mr. Mansfield and Travis Johnson both used this word back and forth, like it was a common word. I would again submit that Mr. Johnson probably had a little bit of help with his testimony. Even so, his testimony doesn't match the evidence, and there's some serious inconsistencies in here. Because one of the things that Ms. Paul Belmont says is that Rory Wilson was wearing the same clothes that day that he was wearing that night. Travis Johnson, if I remember correctly, his story was that we go upstairs, change into dark clothes, come downstairs brandishing weapons. So if that's true, then why does Ms. Belmont say she saw and could recognize Rory Wilson? Because he was wearing the same exact clothes he wore that day. Another one is, again, the inconsistencies in the weapons. Again, the state is trying to put the murder weapon in my hand, what we assume is the murder weapon. We've always assumed that, I guess. Mr. Wilson's already been convicted on that murder weapon. Rightfully so. His DNA is on the handle of it. You have both victims' DNA and blood on the weapon. I'm not saying, again, that because again, I understand the principle behind felony murder, but they also haven't given any evidence other than Travis Johnson's word that I was there. And so far, Travis doesn't seem to have had, he doesn't seem to be very truthful, Your Honor, or credible, if I would say. So if he's the only thing that's putting me there, then you'd have to wonder if the jury is going to believe him. Now, again, Mr. Mansfield had a chance with me. He could have went ahead and tried to impeach anything I said up there. He didn't. Not one thing.
Well,
okay.
That's debatable. I mean,
this
is real life.
I don't know.
It's not like a Perry Mason type thing.
No, I get it. I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to be. It's not a showboat or anything like that.
I know that. I'm just saying that, he's not most likely. Mr. Mansfield or any other lawyer isn't going to somehow or other get you to break down on the witness stand.
No, I didn't expect that.
That's not what he's saying,
I would
though.
expect if you have all this evidence, enough evidence that they're going to bring me to trial and they're going to go ahead and try and put me on trial for murder, you would expect that he would have at least one thing that he could take from the murder and make me a liar in my story. One. I mean, at least one.
Well, who knows what he might be arguing about?
Well, I mean, look, I gave a story up there that yes, this is what happened to me, and I've never been asked it before until today. As far as my entire story. Again, in this entire story, to be honest, I mean, even with when the investigators asked me questions, they asked me questions. I know we didn't testify to that, but I've never in this entire story, nothing I've ever said has been proven to be untrue. Nothing. And yet here I am. Now, Mr. Johnson, again, there's plenty of things that are inconsistencies. Again, there's nothing that says he's the getaway driver. We went ahead and had Captain Phelps, we played that tape, and look, at great risk to me, I put that tape up there because I also knew that the statements, the incriminating statements, weren't true. And I'm going to have to address that with the jury in the close if that's what indeed happens. But yes, the only thing the only thing that ever said John Travis Johnson was the getaway driver was Captain Phelps. It came right from her. Now, Mr. Mansfield did try and say that Travis offered her, my name without any help from Phelps. And that's completely untrue too. Again, if you want to talk about testimony and going over testimony, I guess, or rehearsing testimony, I don't know. But the thing is yes, when he did that, he asked him, he's like, okay, did she offer, did you offer her Tyrone Tucker's name without being asked by Captain Phelps? No, Captain Phelps, on the other hand, said, we know who the asshole is here. And his answer was, is it Tyrone? That's not exactly saying, hey, Ty did this. That is literally leading a witness into, or leading a suspect into saying it's somebody else. Again, as far as all the evidence goes, there's no evidence other than that. I let the state put in almost every piece of evidence they wanted to. Almost everything they wanted, right? Not one of those pieces of evidence has been tied to me, not a single one. The jury's going to be back there looking at all these pictures, nothing in there. There's not a single piece of evidence that Mr. Mansfield actually put to me, not one. So okay, there's that. And then, okay, I haven't made very many objections, but that's also because, again, there's nothing to object. I mean, they can say their story. I've heard it before. And same thing. The inconsistencies are still there. With John Travis Johnson, his stories are inconsistent at best, right? And again, now we have Miss Belmont. Miss Belmont, yes, we had a few different things, and yes, I'd hoped to have a few more witnesses here. I did, and I'm not going to. That's okay. At this point, I'm not even necessarily sure I need them. Miss Belmont, yes, she went through different periods of time. Apparently, Mr. Mansfield wasn't made aware of the motion that Your Honor granted, letting us talk and letting us become friends. But other than that, it's like, I could tell you the different reasons why she felt different ways at different times and why different things happened with Miss Belmont. There's videos of that too. We discussed putting them on, but again, it wasn't necessary apparently. But there's nothing else, Your Honor. I mean, literally, it comes back down to Travis Johnson. You're talking about one man's word versus another. And at this point, I think I'm much more credible than Travis Johnson. So, I mean, unless the state's got something else that they can bring out, something else that they can show the jury to even suggest the story's true.
There's no more evidence.
Okay, well then.
That's the evidence is.
Then I would suggest, Your Honor, that there is no way that a jury could look at this case the state put on, and that they could come up beyond a reasonable doubt that I actually did this crime. And whether it be felony murder, whether it be robbery, whether it be any of it. Because again, you can't even put me there, other than Travis Johnson. So, I mean, I guess at this point I would defer to the state. I mean, the state, I'm sure, wants to go ahead and be heard.
All right, well, thank you. Does the state want to?
Reasonable minds could evaluate this evidence, and if they believe Travis Johnson, they find him credible, then they would convict him.
Mansfield doesn't even sound very sure of it, does he?
The defendant says, I'm much more credible than Travis Johnson. Well, that's his opinion on his own testimony, but I submit to the court that the corroborating evidence the state introduced to corroborate Travis Johnson is compelling. And if a juror believes that,
List it, Mr. Mansfield.
render a verdict of guilty. As far as him letting us move in evidence, he could have objected if he didn't want to. The evidence that we moved in is the evidence we moved in. At the end of the day, this court and the jury has received good and competent evidence from Travis Johnson, and from Danielle Malone, and from the DA.
He can barely say that with a straight face.
Dr. Steckbauer, and together, the elements of these charges have been proven through these witnesses. Now, the defendant put on the testimony of Paula Belmont, and I submit to the court that testimony has been fairly impeached extensively as to her knowledge of that second assailant who would be this defendant. He says nobody puts him at the scene of the crime, but that's not true. Travis Johnson watches the videos and articulates who is who in these videos that we saw. At the end of the day, we have the defendant, all he's put on is the testimony of Paula Belmont and his own testimony. And then there's obviously the jury instruction that's he catered specifically to how to evaluate testimony, and if that testimony, if the person giving it has something to gain from it. Certainly, the defendant has something to gain from his testimony, and so would Travis Johnson for that regard. But Travis Johnson has been consistent in his statement from the beginning until now, albeit a couple of minor, I guess.
He has not, actually, if you consider the motion to suppress,
Consistent from the date of the arrest in 2017,
which was filed on his behalf by his attorney, and is essentially him speaking.
the date of this trial and Rory Wilson's trial. And because of that, Judge, the state would request that you deny
Which the state and the judge kept out.
Your Honor, do I get,
Yes.
okay, thank you. In addressing Mr. Mansfield's claims here, again, we can go back to he wants to say that Travis Johnson is credible and that he hasn't changed his story. That is not true. Travis Johnson has changed his story many times. Again, if we were looking at the videos, he changed his story numerous times. As a matter of fact, he even admitted that instead of vacillating, he was lying when he first told his story, right? Then he goes ahead and oh, wait a second, Captain Phelps comes by, tells him exactly every single detail and every single part of his story, and yet that's the story that the state still presents. But unfortunately, it still doesn't match the other witnesses or the evidence. The evidence does not put the knife in my hand. The DNA puts the knife in Roy Wilson's hand, contrary to John Travis Johnson's story. If you want to go again, even to the other witnesses, Roger Ruggett, 2 skull masks, even Paula Belmont, you want to talk about her and her testimony wavering or vacillating. Yes, she does, but she never says, not a single witness in this case has ever said a neck gaiter with Jägermeister all over it, which you would think is fairly recognizable. They want to talk about a beard being recognizable? Well, guess what? So is a Jägermeister neck gaiter, I would imagine, would be too. Again, I don't see anything in here where John Travis Johnson, and I'll tell you what.
It appears the judge might be warming up to the idea of a judgment of acquittal.
He played really
I think the
well
judge is
in
getting
the
it clear now that this is a sham case.
But yeah, when he gets upset, it shows. And the other thing is, he also says that in 2017 he was sober, but then he also goes ahead and says, "Wait a second, I'm doing all this dope. I'm smoking crack. I'm doing all this other stuff." That doesn't sound sober. Then you also have, beyond that, okay, not sober, and then he talk about his story, again, core to his story. How many times did he say, "I did it for $50 worth of gas money"? $50 worth of gas money. Now, again, comes back on stand, and this is in the same, by the way, in the same cross, he goes ahead and says, at first it's $50 of gas money, now it's because, and I would imagine this is true, because he wants to get high. That's different. So Mr. Mansfield, he wants to say that he hasn't materially changed his story. He has materially changed his story, but he also doesn't match the other witnesses. He doesn't match the other evidence. Roger Ruggett says 2 knives, okay? That doesn't match John Travis Johnson's story. Now, Paula, again, she has varying stories, and I would submit there's reasons for that, but again, it doesn't match John Travis Johnson's story. Now, John Travis Johnson, sure, he could come up with all that other stuff. He could drive you. He could literally draw you a map man for the route. He can literally go ahead and map out I would imagine he could probably map out the whole crime. That would be easy to do if you were actually there. I don't see where John Travis Johnson would have a problem doing that. He's admitted he was there. He's admitted to his deal. Yes, he's getting, you talk about a sweetheart deal. 5 years.
Judge, we're going beyond an argument for judgment of acquittal here.
Well, yeah, to some extent.
Okay.
I think,
I'll comment
Mr.
that.
You're
I'll comment
probably tipping your hand for your closing argument. But,
Not necessarily.
I guess that's not, not a mystery what some of the things in your closing is going to be. But
Thank you, sir.
you're getting into quite a bit of detail here.
I'll address one other thing. He challenges my story, right? And he says because I have interests in this. I didn't take a deal, Your Honor. I could have. I didn't take one. John Travis Johnson did.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I mean,
aware.
you talk about what
those
I have to gain.
respective decisions.
Well, I mean, what I have to gain from this. That's what Mr. Mansfield.
Well,
was.
yeah, of course, that's one of the things that any witness is, one of the considerations is what do they have to gain, what's at stake.
Yes, and what do I have to lose, Your Honor? I have a lot to lose
Your
too.
freedom.
I do, and for the rest of my life, Your Honor.
Yes,
Not
sir.
just for a little while, less from my life.
But that's making that point. is-
I'm just saying, you know, I didn't have to do this, but I am. And the reason I have my personal reasons for doing this, but it has nothing to do with, oh, I want to gain this. If it was, you know, again, some kind of payment or something like that, I could understand. But no, no, I'm doing this because I have my own moral reasons for doing this. But again, that's what I submit. You know, again, you want to talk about who's more credible, who's not. It boils down to, at this point, whether or not you believe me, whether or not you believe John Travis Johnson, whether or not you believe Paula. But I mean, there is no physical evidence. And he brought in, and this is one thing I do need to address, he brought in Dr. Steckbauer, which I don't know how that proves the state's case, because it is.
Well, in a homicide case.
I mean, it proves it was a homicide, but it doesn't.
You're going to have the medical
No,
examiner.
I get that, but okay, how does that tie me into the case? How is that proof against me?
You know, there's an old saying in the law that every hit doesn't have to be a home run. It takes many bricks to build a wall. So
I've heard that too.
That certainly wasn't a home run, but it's all part of a case that's put together that may or may not succeed ultimately.
Well, no, I understand,
but
Your Honor.
you've got to be able to look at that basic process.
I understand, Your Honor, but there's also an old legal term that I've heard before
Well, tell
too.
me, what is it?
A brick is not a wall.
Okay.
A brick is not a wall.
Right.
Okay, they have a brick. They don't have a wall. And again, so, you know, yes, okay, yes, you know, Dr. Steckbauer is part of the case. I would never deny that. And his testimony is definitely valid towards the case. It's valid to say somebody got murdered, this is how they got killed. I don't debate that at all. Same thing with the DNA analyst. Now, the DNA analysts, we covered the whole inconclusive results and how I said they were being used as a positive by the state. That is not the same thing as positive results. And even in that testimony, things that, you know, they were trying to use as inconclusive as positives weren't even things that weren't put into evidence. You're talking about the gloves, you're talking about the sweatshirt. That stuff, man, wasn't even found at the crime scene, had nothing to do with the crime, at least that we know of.
We're running out of time.
But anyway, the point is, Your Honor, yes, I understand why they're important to the investigation. I understand that. But I want to know how that proves that I had something to do with their charges. How does that prove their case?
Well, I'm not going to make their closing argument for them, and I'm not going to make your closing
No,
argument for
I
you.
wouldn't expect you would.
You know, I used to be a trial lawyer for many years. I've tried many a criminal case and homicide cases, so I know a lot of your questions are rhetorical in
Yes,
nature, but as I sit here, I have my understanding and ideas. So, in any event, thank you.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
So, it is a different standard for this motion. As we discussed quite a bit for the close of the state's case, prima facie case. Okay. Now, it's analysis of the entire evidentiary record, the totality of the evidence, and the judge has to ask himself or herself, does that or can that support a verdict of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt by a reasonable juror? Is it so devoid of convincing, persuasive evidence that no reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty? And if that's the case, then the judge would rule as a matter of law that there's an acquittal right here and now. So, Mr. Tucker, you're obviously very, very knowledgeable about this case. Very conversant, very knowledgeable. As we kind of alluded to during your argument in the States, and I'm going to look at just one of these jury instructions because you and the state mentioned it. It's 3.94, and the actual verbiage is, did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? So, did Mr. Johnson? Yes. Do you? Yes. I mean, and that's the point. The jurors can consider that along with a lot of other things, but that's one of the factors. Another jury instruction, again, part of 3.9, weighing the evidence. And it came up in jury selection, interestingly enough. Whether the state has met its burden of proof does not depend upon the number of witnesses it is called or upon the number of exhibits it is offered, but instead upon the nature and quality of the evidence presented. So you obviously feel that the nature and quality of the evidence is weak, shaky, whatever adjective you want to use, and state has a different take on it. I readily acknowledge you have a lot to argue. And you touched upon some of those things in your argument here. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you don't have a lot of things to argue. But I believe that ultimately the evidentiary record is such that I couldn't and wouldn't and be mistaken to rule as a matter of law that it should be taken from the jury's hands, because I believe, depending upon the credibility determinations that they make, that there could be a guilty verdict, and is and would be supported by the evidence. Again, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I readily acknowledge your arguments, but I am going to deny the motion based upon the finding that I've made. So we go forward. Again, please study these jury instructions. If you have any objections or specials or additionals, that's the kind of thing that we do in a charge conference. I basically work from my Florida standard jury instructions here, as well as the proposals. Some of these, I assume a lot of them come right from the Supreme Court's website. And
They all did, Judge.
they all, okay. So that means there's standard jury instructions. That doesn't mean that there can't be other proposals or objections. All I'm saying is that's kind of the starting point. So you do need to be prepared to, if there are any objections or additions or the verdict form you find to be objectionable or in need of change, those are the things that we talk about during charge conference. So I think we have ample time, and if there's changes, then they can be made, and actually I think the arguments could start even while the changes are being made. But having said that, I mentioned the length for closing. We're still somewhere between hour and a half. But and I guess, unless there's, I give each side an hour and a half. It doesn't mean you have to use it all, but what I don't want to happen is to say, get to an hour and have someone look up to me, either defendant, defense counsel, or the state, and say, Judge, I need more time. I'd much prefer to be a little liberal at the beginning, so we know that when the time is up, that's it. So, hour and a half, but that's the max. The state gets to go first and last. Total amount of time is the same, but the defendant's sandwiched in between. You get the same amount of time. They're going to make a rebuttal argument. The total time has to be equal. I mean, you don't have to use it all, but the maximum is equal. So, unless there's something else, we'll be here at 9, and hopefully have a smooth charge conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. So there you have it. We are the case is concluded. I think, if I wasn't mistaken, I think the judge is starting to be won over a little bit. I think he knows just how terrible the state's case was. I mean, I have never seen, and I've watched a lot of trials, I've never seen a weaker argument from the state. They literally argued nothing. Most of the time, they'll get up, they'll talk about pieces of evidence, they'll talk about how it applies to their case. Not here. Tucker did a heck of a job, but we knew the judge was never taking this from the jury. They would have never come this far. They knew what this case was. It's going to take 12 people to stand up and say, no, this is not going to be acceptable. And that's exactly what they should do. It should be a very quick not guilty, in my opinion. The state's case was terrible, and we've seen a little preview of what Mr. Tucker is going to argue, and I think it's going to be a very strong and persuasive argument tomorrow. And if this case makes it to the jury tomorrow, I think it probably will. I don't think, and the only reason why I would say it wouldn't is if things run so late that the judge says we're going to begin fresh in the morning on Thursday morning. Then, in that case, I could see it stretching over. But, I think after he testified, and you look at the totality of the evidence, you look at the fact that there really is no evidence. This jury has to be asking themselves, why is this guy on trial? And like I said, I don't think it's going to be long, unless you're going to get 12 people to speculate and try to, bring things in that aren't even in the record. This should be very easy. And I think this jury is going to follow the law. I think they're going to follow the evidence. And, there's no reason that I have to believe that they wouldn't. But I think it's going to be a quick not guilty. So I will be on the lookout. I'm going to be releasing potentially another video this evening going into some areas and some evidence that was excluded from the trial. And again, if everything had come in, if everything we know, if everything, you go over to Mr. Tucker's website, Free Franklin Tucker, you go over to that website and you look at his videos. And I've, looked at a majority of them. This prosecution would be run out of the courtroom. And what's disgusting about this case, those prosecutors sitting there, is they're aware of all of it. They're aware of the fact that John Travis Johnson filed a motion stating that his testimony was false, that he was in fact influenced by Penny Phelps. This is a matter of fact. This is that motion was filed, right? That's what he says, and they kept it out. And they kept it out not because it shouldn't have come in; it could have come in. But they kept it out because they played games. They played games with subpoenas. They played games with knowing Mr. Tucker's wasn't an experienced lawyer to know all of the ins and outs to get it in. And some would say, well, that was Mr. Tucker's choice to go pro se. And it was. But the point is, the prosecution in this case, in any case, is supposed to be about facts, evidence, and is supposed to be wanting to have a full review of the case, not get this wrong, not have this go south. So that's not what this is about. And what they've attempted to do in this case is just continue time and again to subvert the justice process, time and again to try to twist, turn, and essentially continue to try to cover up a mistake that was made long ago. And I think it's really speaks volumes that the final person, this case began and it ended with Detective Malone. And she was the last one the jury heard from. Because without her, Mr. Tucker never finds his way where he's at right now. And the fact that she was brought on the stand and he got the final say, he got the final questions, and he got to bring in her final examples of how she absolutely messed up this investigation. How she pursues Mr. Tucker on the word of a CI and a Facebook photo, but it wasn't enough when the victim in this case, the person that got injured in this case, the surviving victim who was attacked in this case, is telling you a name, telling you who did this, telling you who's behind this, and they don't go after that person. She was allowed to be free until she passed away, and they hit her, and we don't know the background on that. We don't know why she was so important, but we do. But there is inferences, there is suggestions that she had some sort of a confidential informant relationship with the police department. Perhaps that was why they didn't want to mess up their cases. They didn't want to bang her up in this. Who knows? But that was one aspect of why I think they ignored her. And then the second aspect is Malone goes down a road based on a Facebook photo, and she made an erroneous assumption that leads her to pursue Mr. Tucker, and then finds herself wasting invaluable investigative time. She's already in an environment where she's being looked at as an incompetent person. She's under stress. She's not doing things. She's got personal problems. She's not in an environment where she could say, hey, I made a mistake. It's not this. And on top of that, Captain Phelps runs with this and decides, hey, let me take over. Let me do this. An interesting thing is they push out the lead detective in this case, Detective Pitcher. Never gets called in this case. Completely out of this case. And that's interesting. Since when have you ever had a case where the lead investigator isn't called? And not only that, but the lead investigator doesn't even make a charging decision in this case. And there's a reason why they didn't put him on the stand, because there's a 500-page deposition out there that tells you exactly why that they kept out, and they were able to keep it out. And the state gets to decide what comes in and what doesn't. And unfortunately, again, the side effect of Mr. Tucker being pro se is he's got to navigate all of these legal challenges to try to figure out how to get these things in. And he did the best he could, but I think the best he could do was enough, because this case is so weak. It's so devoid of any evidence that unless there's a greater problem with this jury that we don't know, I think a not guilty verdict should be the verdict that comes in, and it should be this time tomorrow. I could see this case being resolved and not guilty being declared. And hopefully Mr. Tucker's walking out of that courthouse back into the rest of his life and is able to continue and pick up with things without this hanging over his head. And ultimately, I hope too, he seems like he's pursued this himself. I hope he pursues remedies for the situation and takes up and holds people accountable for this once he's out from under these charges. Hopefully that's what we're talking about this time tomorrow, or maybe a little later in the day tomorrow. Maybe it goes into the evening. I can't imagine it's going to take too long, but it could. Juries want to be diligent. Sometimes they want to go through things. Sometimes there's one person in that jury room that says, well, wait a minute. I'm not completely convinced, but I mean, listen, I came into this with no knowledge of this case when I first started covering it. Day one of the trial, and it stood out to me as something that was absolutely wrong. And I started digging in, and I found information. I found videos. I found things outside of what we were seeing in court, because it became clear to me when I went in. And I will tell you, I didn't go find that information anywhere other than the Monroe County Court. I went in there because of the cross-examination Mr. Tucker did for Malone, of Detective Malone, and my journey started. And I've, looking at what they presented, looking at what I now know from the documents and everything that I've seen, this is a disturbing case. This is a very troubling case, and this is a case why we watch. This is why we can never let the justice process operate in darkness. This is why we need all eyes on Key West until this thing gets to a verdict. So let's see here. It looks like we have a comment here. I'm undecided on every other question. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Billy Hardy, but are you talking about yourself, or are you talking about something that was stated in court by someone else? But I think a lot of people should be undecided on this because the standard, of course, is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, that's something that I think sometimes gets lost when people are reviewing a trial, understanding that it's not a matter of guilt or innocence, true factual innocence, we mean. It's a matter of whether or not the state has the evidence to prove the elements of the crimes that they're alleging the individual committed. And in this case, it's a slam dunk that doesn't exist. It would require a juror to assume or try to speculate on evidence not in question to get to a guilty verdict in this case. And that is a fact. Now, whether that gets argued to the jury, it remains to be seen. I think Mr. Tucker's going to touch on that tomorrow, I hope, because that is going to get him walking out of that courtroom. Because there is, in my opinion, no way that you could ever find that the evidence in record right now amounts to be a proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Just impossible. Anyways, guys, for now, I'm going to call this. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, be on the lookout for a video potentially dropping this evening. And in the meantime, guys, we'll be back tomorrow for closing arguments. I guess the charge conference at 9, closing arguments at 10. And I assume after lunch, the jury will get this case. And then we'll see how long they need to decide on it. I don't think it will be long, but I could be wrong. I don't think I will be wrong, but I could be. I think it's going to be a pretty easy case to decide for this jury in deciding that Mr. Tucker is not guilty. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. And I will talk to you tomorrow, talk to you soon. In the meantime, let justice prevail, and I'll be talking.